All right, Pints and Popcorn is back after a 2-year hiatus. I think it's been. We're finally back. We're really excited to do it. I think we've been circling it for a long time, as we circled the original idea, and COVID being locked in our houses with literally nothing else to do apart from watch movies and talk about them gave us the opportunity. But as I think a lot of people found coming out of COVID, readjusting back to life with a lot more things happening was difficult at times, and life had changed a bit. We were dealing with extra time to go places with mask mandates and all those things, which fully supportive of course, but life was very different and hard and sometimes a little bit overwhelming to manage. And unfortunately, one of the things that fell by the wayside was this podcast, but we always plan to come back to it, and we're really excited to be back. A few things to mention quickly before I introduce my beautiful co-host. We will have. There's going to be a merch store popping up soon. That'll be on the Instagrams.
Oh no! Did you freeze already?
I can hear you. I just can't. Yeah, no, it's back. Yeah, no, we're good. That'll happen. Okay. Internet, So yeah, there'll be a merch store popping up. That'll happen. You keep an eye on the Instagram, Pints and Popcorn on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. I'm really excited about some of the stuff we've got coming out there. And then I think that's about it. If any breweries or anything out there want to sponsor us, or popcorn manufacturers, we're open for business. Let us know. We have I think 2 or 3 loyal listeners from 2 years ago. Whatever. Anyway, that's about it. We'll get into. I'll have more of a read going forward, but this is just this podcast. We're not doing anyone that listened before. We, like all of our podcasts so far, have been an individual movie that we do. Apart from one, we did do a little bit of a news one towards the end of our first run. But this particular podcast won't be an individual movie. We'll be getting back into that next week. We'll announce that at the end, which one we're doing. But yeah, this podcast is kind of a way for us to reintroduce ourselves into chatting about movies a little bit, dip our toes back in, and as well as the fact that it's just been such a crazy couple of years in a lot of different ways that since we last recorded, it's just a nice way to get back into it, to talk to each other again without too much pressure about research on a movie. But goddamn, they're already getting a peek behind the curtain. Right. But yeah, anyway, as you can hear that beautiful voice on the other side, Shea's back.
David,
face,
my illustrious host, and who lets me podcast with him. It's so good to be back. I'm so excited. There's been a lot of movies since we last talked. I think our last one was June too, which is kind of embarrassing, but it was your birthday movie in, I believe, January of 21. So
yeah,
I'm not upset that we did it, but it's just hilarious that was the last movie we did after we've talked about so many profound topics and so many award-winning movies and just brilliant performances. We're just Goon is what we decided to bookend our last first season with. So yes, I'm glad to be back.
and I would not change a thing. Apart from being a bit more organized to keep recording. But that Goon podcast was a lot of fun. I probably watched that movie 5 or 6 times since as well. It's a couple of times a year rewatch, I think. So yeah, comfort movie.
Yeah, first voice crack of the new season too. So that's good.
Those will
happen. To get it out of the way on the intro. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time, and obviously we never stop talking about film or movies together. So just because the podcast is popping up again doesn't mean that we stop talking about movies with each other.
Yeah, or just stop talking to each other. We've actually, you and I I think we literally talk every day. Whether it's a couple of texts or it's a string of texting back. Well, we talk every day about a variety of things, but movies is very much a part of that. And awesome. we even got to we saw each other in person finally after a couple of years of COVID, back in March for your birthday in Philly. And we talked about movies at a certain point in that trip as well, and argued about
I was called pretentious Shea for not the first time certainly, and probably not the last either, but I can't even remember what movie we were talking about that brought that up. But yes, it just was that was kind of the seed that grew into we were always going to bring the podcast back, but that was the seed where it was no, we really need to do this because we're just the first time we see each other in 4 years in person, and we're just yelling at each other about movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like while watching the Blazers play. So it's like, which is the whole reason we went there, and it's just like, yeah. So Philadelphia can even stop us from talking about film. So
no, it couldn't stop us from much, really.
yeah. I had a great
Just
time.
oh yeah, same.
I had
We
a great time.
I didn't think I was young enough anymore to close down bars in any city, particularly a big one like Philly, but managed it. So you know,
Didn't get in fights either, which was really my biggest concern. But again,
that was difficult.
Yeah. Turning back to film, there's been a
Yes.
lot of great ones. We've talked about a lot of great films. Obviously, you and I have different tastes, but we do overlap a great deal. So it's been fun to talk to you not on the podcast about movies because you feel like more free. Obviously, you don't have
Yeah.
to, I mean, maybe one day with our pod, I'll be there where I can just remember that I'm just speaking to no one.
That's what the beauty of the pod has always been, though. I think we get into that. My first question to you, about movie things was, the last time we talked on the podcast, I don't think you've probably been back to the cinema yet. I think you took I went back at the end of 2020. Obviously, the Australia opened up a little bit sooner for certain things, and we were just a little bit, we handled it better.
Oh yeah.
I was like, why is that controversial? It is. We just handled it better.
It will be. But yeah.
But anyway,
we'll probably get flagged for something.
But I'd been back, but the last time we talked on the podcast, I don't think you'd been back yet. So how have you found the experience of going like back to the cinema post pandemic? Like just the experience. Have you found it? Was it weird at first after a long absence? Have you found it a bit different, or is it feeling? I guess, and the thing is like your appreciation for it as well. I know you don't go quite as much as me and my lovely wife do, but
I don't live in LA, which is
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
going to the cinema in Wallingford or North Haven, Connecticut is a little different than LA for private screenings or like not private but select. Yeah, it's a little different out here. Yeah, I have found it to be like I want my space, which I always have been that way. I think my father taught me that at movies. It's like, why are you sitting right next to me when there's like seats open? But especially like post-pandemic, like when you're sitting in a theater, like, and there's only like a couple other people, and then somebody sits down right next to you, and you select your seats now, and it's just like, why are you sitting right next to me? It's like because I've just been watching film, like I had watched films for a year and a half, like on my couch. And so it's like I don't want to be around anybody. I liked that. That was something about the pandemic that I liked. It's almost like standing in line at the store and somebody stands too close to you. It's like, why are you standing this close to me?
Yeah.
There's no like we as people, there's no like this isn't a busy like Tokyo subway. More the United States is gigantic. But yeah, I've enjoyed my time back. I have found that like I eat less at the movies. I drink more at the movies. Thank you, pandemic. But yeah, it is different for sure. I like my space more. But also since the pandemic, I feel like I do miss like old movie theaters with like kind of the shitty seats almost. Like I almost miss the experience.
Yeah.
Like I don't want the cinema to feel like my couch. And I feel like that's where we're at now. So
yeah,
because like people can bring. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so the cinema like local to you is quite a like one of those ones that's got the reclining seats and all that kind of thing, or is that what you're talking about? Yeah,
everyone I go to now is like I haven't like I'm sure indie theater, like I'm sure there's some like indie house in New Haven that I haven't been to yet. Has that stuff like kind of like the Bijou in Eugene. Still has that, but every theater I go to now, even like Wallingford Cinema is absolute shit, and it still has like you can lean back and like leather chair, and it's just like in the summertime it's the worst. It's like I remember seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, our first episode ever, shameless plug, at Pints and Popcorn on Instagram. That like I remember sweating, like my legs sweating in the seats because it was almost 4 years ago when that came
Mm.
out. Just sitting in those leather chairs in the summertime and my legs sweating, and I'm like, man, give me those old shitty cinema chairs and like I don't know, like a bucket of popcorn, not a bag, you know?
Mhm.
Like,
So
so I
what I'm hearing is you actually do need to come out to LA and go to the Quentin Tarantino's new Bev, because that
well, that
is
was yeah.
that is I know we've talked about it that you would like to come out at some point, and that'll happen. Hopefully everyone buys merch and pays for it. But but yeah, it's no, I it's interesting you bring. I've never thought about it this way, because I do enjoy. I have to say, I do enjoy when I go to one of those cinemas, and like, because me and Andrea and I sometimes, when we go to a movie, it's sometimes when she's just finished work and we're just squeezing in the time, so we don't have time to line up for the snack bar, because there's usually like a 15 people deep line. Like, it's busy
Oh, for
a lot
sure.
out here, and
I don't miss that either.
yeah.
So
So what we'll do is we'll have our seats, and on the AMC app you can, like, this is not, we're not sponsored by AMC. I'm just, it's just the local AMC we go to.
open to
You,
it.
yeah,
Open to it.
if they want to, I know that they're
Talk about
they
a lot of their movies.
yeah. But we order the food, like you can order food to your seats on the app, and like it'll arrive like 10 minutes into the movie time, which is just during the trailers basically. And so you can order whatever you want. We do that, and then we're leaning back in our seats. I do enjoy that, but then whenever I go to either the New Bev or I'm gonna shout out a few cinemas like the Frida Cinema in Santa Ana here in LA. There's we've gone to the Aero a few times, American Cinematheque. They're really, if you're in LA and you haven't supported them yet, get around American Cinematheque. Seeing Nope in 70 millimeter this week with them. So so the Frida, Aero, all the American Cinematheque, which is Los Feliz 3 as well. And then the Brain Dead Studios, which is just around the corner from New Bev. They're all your old school, like the cloth flip down seat. That's all it is. No frills, nice screen. It's a good screen, good sound, but they don't, it's none of the, I do enjoy it. Occasionally a double feature gets a little hard on your back, but I have, yeah, but you're a lot fitter man than I am, so that's just a personal. But I that's one of those things that, like, I sit there and go, I could be better about this for myself. Like, I'm not going to blame the sin. Like, some people go, oh, these seats are uncomfortable and they're like incredibly unfit, and you go, well, there's a certain part of it that's on you, and that's my thing too. Like, I go, I could have better conditioning to not be struggling through a double feature with my back.
No
That's just,
judgment.
yeah. But so that's what I mean. Like, yeah, while I do enjoy the lean backs thing, because it's handy for my lazy body, I do also agree. Like, this is me going, I can see both sides, but I agree with you in a way. Like, it's just, there is something magical about that old school cinema experience, which,
Yes.
yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from, is like it's supposed to be about, and I think like that's kind of what's like lost on American culture at this point, and like we can probably get into this later, which should be a catchphrase for us because we say all the time.
Just getting my phone to make a note. New shirt idea.
Yes. Yeah. Cut that. Editor, cut that. Pines and coffee.
Snip, snip, snip. It's cut. It's in the book. It's in the can.
But I feel like going to the movies now is more about like going to the movies than the actual film, and like the film is this. I'm sorry, I watched Heat recently for the first time, which our one listener will enjoy, because I assume that if they're listening to this, they love Heat. But I saw it for the first time like within the past couple months, and it's like the squeeze is the juice for me, or whatever he says, and that's like with me for like a film. It's like going to see a film and being there just for the film is what it's about. Like, I don't go to eat popcorn. I don't go to eat candy. I don't go for previews. I go for the film that I want to see.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds pretentious, but I don't really give a shit.
Pretentious Shay. Snipping.
I don't care.
I'm snipping that for a shirt too. Yeah. But I mean that in the most, because I mean, the Venn diagram of you and I crossing over in a lot of films is quite like we do cross over, but then there is a certain part of film that you don't enjoy that I do. And then, but so But you're all right. There's a part of, well, this is the thing, and this is what I was going to get into, because you started talking about like the culture thing with it, and this isn't just solo to America. It's something that's been annoying me in Australia since the pandemic, especially. It's gotten 100 times worse, I feel, when I was still in Australia, and now I'm here. The expectation that you can people are so freewheeling with pulling their phones out, talking, all that shit is doing my head in. And part of that is because I think, to your point, the lounge back idea that you can get food delivered, all these different things, has given a sense of comfort that people who got so used to sitting there for a year at home during the pandemic, watching movies, texting, not taking it in fully, I think that's part of it. So there is, to your point, like, while I do enjoy some of those thrills at the cinema, like one of the things I hate is like when I'm sitting there and I see, and I don't notice as much, but Andrea notices every single person, and the only reason she doesn't start a fight is just because I'm just like, I can put up with it and get through the movie. But I think she would like to smack a few around, and that's like, I wish the multiplexes and the big ones actually took more of a stance on it in a way, like, because you just feel like you don't have any support there because people are so open with it. And that's to the point here in LA, and hopefully any other place, like the New Bev, which is Tarantino's house. They are hard on it. I've seen someone pull out a phone once in there. They do a big announcement beforehand and basically say you'll be banned for life as a joke, because I don't think they can do that.
Oh, it's a joke.
Yeah, because I don't think they actually have a system that they could actually bet. Like, it's not like they've got like reading IDs or anything. But someone pulled out a phone once at the start, like during the previews as well, because their thing is like the whole movie is part of the experience. Like, we cater the previews for it, and someone pulled it out towards the end of the trailers. Well, they cater the trailers for the movie you're watching, so it is part of the narrative. Someone pulled his phone out, and the person walked right down and said, "You need to put that away, or you need to get outside." Just very quietly, very direct, and then and no one talks. People laugh and clap and do all that because they're doing it for the movie, and that's something that I think a lot of these small, like, to kind of build off of your point, I think a lot of these smaller movie or independent movie houses that do have a good following are going to keep being more successful if they keep to that purist ideal, because you can, Andrea and I, one of the reasons we go to these places is because we know we're going to get a bit more support, and the fact that the people are there to actually watch the movie, whether it be a new one or one that's beloved, as a lot of the ones we do go see at these places are. And you're not going to see some idiot that doesn't really care about the movie and is just there they take a photo halfway through the movie on Snapchat and go, "Oh, look, I'm here at the Boogeyman," or whatever. Just to tell their friend, and it's just like, and interrupts our experience. The Boogeyman, ironically, we went and saw the Boogeyman and actually had a really good crowd for that one. But we've taken the tack that movies in multiplexes, we wait 3 or 4 weeks and then go see it when it's up towards the end of its run, because you get rid of some of the ones that are just wanting to be there for the hype after that time.
Yeah, I'll do it. So what I've taken to doing is taking a picture outside of when I'm going into whatever theater I'm going into, rather than trying to take like the title shot. But I definitely was that person that was taking a picture of the title shot. But like, I would do that, like, not in a crowded movie theater for sure. Like,
Yeah.
Most of the movies I see like aren't crowded because I wait, like, to not go, like, I'm waiting on Barbie and Oppenheimer as we speak. But I might see Barbie tonight. We'll see how the night goes. But
maybe a good movie to see with a buzz.
Yeah, every movie is a good movie to see with a buzz. But yeah,
that's fair.
Not Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
I think that might make me want to drink like petroleum, but I didn't know. As we record, the Barbenheimer has hit. So.
Yeah, I've got that on my list for after. So okay. Don't worry. That'll be coming up.
I'm bad at following rules and instructions.
I literally sent you a screenshot of this, and you clearly didn't.
Yes, I agree. I don't know. The phone thing, I think it's just something we'll have to get used to, because I don't see it going anywhere.
I mean, that's a fair point. Like, I think you're frozen, but I can still hear you, so it's fine. Just in case you were wondering. But yeah, I think that, well, that's the thing. I don't think the phone thing's ever going to go away in the multiplexes. I just wish there was a bit more Yeah, and that's the thing that there's the way they work, and you can get into the whole of American culture and how much people are paid to work in these places. Unfortunately, they just can't handle policing people on their phones as well, and having someone stationed in each cinema or something like that. That's just not going to work
Shouldn't.
unless we change the entire structure of cinema. But that's why I think these independent houses, and they're actually like, I assume they're doing it without having talked to someone. I know it might be something on the future journey of this podcast. I'd like to talk to some of the people that run these places and see how it works for them. But the thing is, they're usually a single cinema, or at most a two cinema setup. So they do have an advantage in the fact that their entire business is built around just one screen, whereas a multiplex, you can have, 8, 16, whatever movies running at a time at minimum. So,
And they're like overlapping with the
yeah,
same picture. You're just like, Jesus Christ.
yeah.
It's
So, yeah. So that I've always known that that's a thing you just have to deal with, and I'm not going to be like, oh, grumpy man on the lawn about it. Like, as I said, I see it happen, and I just try to, if someone gets obnoxious about it, I'll kind of at least just say something. But I'd say it has to get to a fair level for me to even do that. My one takeaway of that is it's noticeably worse since the pandemic, which is one of those effects that I was kind of talking about at the start, like how it's changed since. I think people have gotten more bold with it, and just subconscious attitudes have changed, and that's what I've noticed. So my point being, support the independent places that, whether they're showing, their revivals and showing older movies, or they're showing a bit of both or whatever. Support them as well, because if you want to go see a movie that you're going to love, which is always nice, because sometimes you go see a new movie and you realize you hate it, and often they're actually pretty cheap too. Like the new bev for their midnight movies is still $10, and during the day they're 13. And you're getting just
and it's
literally,
beautiful.
yeah, just
Take
a
a picture, post it on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
You're an influencer now.
Yeah.
So
Just 3
but
simple steps. I've got like a little catalog of pictures that I'm going to start like sharing on the Pints and Popcorn
nice.
account
Yeah.
to just kind of go over the last few months of the journey down here. But yeah.
And you've sent those to me, and they're obviously like
Mm-hmm.
makes me so jealous. And it's like that's what I want to like say to like listeners is like, if you have like a local cinema that like either plays like cool indie flicks or like plays the classics, like go to it, because
Mm-hmm.
when you don't have it in a town that you live, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks for me, like seeing like A24 just put out something um that will be an art house flick, but like the critics are raving about it. And I want to say it's called like Afterlife or something like that, but nah, that's a different A24 flick. But it's like,
I know
man,
the
like,
one you're talking about. It's
yeah,
fuck. It's not after. Might be no. Yeah, I know the one you're talking. It's one that you were talking about a while ago, I think, as well.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like supposed to be amazing, and it's just like when you have nowhere to see that, like that's when it feels bad. So support your local cinema, like even if you're like on the fence about something, like just go. Like at the end of the day, like we just talked about, like you're watching a film, like whether you like it or not, like you're supporting local business. Like you're gonna get good popcorn. They probably serve booze. Like just go, and like it's an hour and 45 minutes of your life. If you don't like it, then you just took in art that you didn't like, and now you know what you like better. But you're
Mm,
supporting something. So it's like, yeah, support your local art house, because you don't really like understand what it's like to not have something like that in your life.
yeah. And to that point, like, because I feel like I've just been thinking about it as you're talking. Also do like my big thing too is like, as much as I've just shit on the people within the cinemas, we still need to support the multiplexes and then the new releases when they come out, because those opening weekend numbers are such a crucial part of um, the Hollywood makeup, and we'll get into just, if anyone's listening, we'll get into the WGA and all that, SAG-AFTRA and all that stuff in a bit. I promise you, but that might be in the second half. Um, but yeah, support. Like, you've got to support the big movies
Past
as well.
lives. Sorry to interrupt.
Past lives, yeah, afterlife, past lives, yeah. I was like,
Sorry to interrupt, but it was driving me insane.
yeah.
And yeah, I really want to see that movie, and I can't find it anywhere in Connecticut. And it's just
Mm,
like, hey, that's why you support like an art house, because like they will always have that film.
yeah, yeah.
And
Now,
like you might see it with 3 other people, and like maybe like a collection of like 15 people will see it overall, but it's like that's why you're supporting that place. So you like that they can bring that for you. Like,
Mhm.
so you're helping yourself out in the long run.
Yeah, and that's what I've always talked about with you as well. I know we've talked about a lot off air, is like all of the mechanisms and kind of the structures and the nervous system of the Hollywood system and the wider cinema system all feeds off of each other. Like the smaller ones get a bit of, like, the smaller movies sometimes with big actors in them or whatever come from the fact that their wider ecosystem is healthy. And so, support the small ones, support the big ones, support the in-between ones, just support cinema and what you love. Like, we're not saying go out and see a movie you don't like, genre. Like, I know Shea's not going to go out and see every horror movie I say I loved, because he's not into, like, there's one that I'll bring up, and we're going to have our top 5 discoveries of the last few years and towards the end of the podcast. And
Discoveries
I know,
is the way to put it
well,
for me, because
yeah,
I'm not doing so well on that. But yeah,
I've
I
actually,
don't have a letterbox. We'll get to that too. Like,
yeah,
I need to start one.
we'll get to that there. Yeah. No, so to transition, we'll talk about this, and then we'll take a quick break before we get into the second half. To talk about, I think it's kind of an organic way into it, because we've just been talking about movies and opening weeks and everything. And you brought it up a little bit before, Barbenheimer. Just without, we'll get into it, but like just with me just saying that word, what do you think about this phenomenon that's just grown just crazily, really?
I think it's hilarious because, like, as I've sent you recently, it's like this is obviously not the first time that like
Yeah.
movies have overlapped. Um, but it is funny that like these two, which are seemingly way different films, but I don't actually think I think like a fan of film will like both of them for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen either, by the way.
Yeah,
Yet.
no, right. It's Saturday for us. Me and Andre are doing the Barbenheimer double feature, and I think in a space of about 7 hours, we'll have seen both movies, which Oppenheimer being 3 hours is why it's a decent amount of time.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm probably gonna see Barbie first, just because it's in my local cinema, and I want to see. Not that North Haven is very far away, but I think the one that I could squeeze in tomorrow, where I would want to watch it, is at 10:45 a.m. and it's just like I'm not ready for that at 10:45 a.m. But I will. I have Monday off, so I think I will see it that day down there on a big screen. It's on an IMAX screen, but a big screen.
I think big screen and decent sound system is just important for Oppenheimer. That's like, at the very least, like if you can do it. Obviously, some people, as you were saying, it's location sometimes makes it tough. But
I mean, I don't even know an IMAX around me, but I think it's a good thing for film.
Mhm.
I think it's like cool because it is like it like pits people against each other. Like, I'm not into that, but like it has on Instagram and Twitter and Threads and all the social media stuff. It's like it's pit people against each other, so it's like it's really good for cinema that like people are excited about like wanting to see their side of the things, and like obviously all the memes and gifs and all that stuff are hilarious, but it's just really cool that there's two movies that like different sects of the population are excited to see, and like at the same time, and like it is a Venn diagram because obviously we're in the middle, we're gonna see both, but like
Yeah.
it's cool that there's movies that people are excited about coming out at the same time. So if like you don't even go to the movies that often, like one of those movies probably trips your trigger a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how like people take in Barbie, because I think there is a sect of our current society that like doesn't really understand maybe where it's going to be coming from, and like they're going to be shocked by it, or they're going to say it's terrible because they like think it's something and it's not that.
For some reason, a lot of them are based in Florida and certain other states. But anyway, sorry, is this thing on? No.
What is this thing? Yeah.
No, you're right, and I think what's cool about it, like I do agree. I think it's really good for the cinema, particularly at this time that actors are literally not allowed to plug their stuff. Again, we'll get into that in the second half, but I think this thing has taken on an organic, like fan based, rolling, stone, like boulder rolling down the hill that's just collecting stuff as it goes down. A snowball. That's what I was looking for. Your microphone.
We even talked about it before the pod.
I struggled with snowball then too. I'm not going to get into the context of that. Blue balls. but yeah, it's kind of built like it started a few months ago, and I think I can't remember when I first noticed it, but it's just like the release dates came out, and then something started. I'm going to show it actually now. Like Andrea's got this shirt that she's going to wear on Saturday, if I can unfold it properly.
I've seen
Hopefully,
a bit.
yeah.
So.
Oh God, the green screen
Yeah,
thing.
it's not happening. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll post it on the Instagram. Anyway, I gotta figure out the background thing better. But she's wearing a Barbenheimer shirt, and Andrea was loose. Like I know when Oppenheimer first got in.
Let's just make that.
Yes, yeah. Oh, sorry. Whenever I talk about Andrea, it is my wife. She was interested in, like, she's a cinema lover, and she certainly has enjoyed some Nolan films. So Oppenheimer was like, she was warmly interested in it, I think, but. I mean, she got
is how I would describe my interest in it too.
Yeah, well, I mean, just as I guess
I'm not as stoked about it as everybody is.
I was intrigued when it got announced that it was Nolan making an Oppenheimer film, because Nolan's got such an interesting history of cinema, doing Dark Knight and the superhero movies, and then even just right back to Memento and Interstellar is actually, I think might be his favorite film of mine, which is
I never saw that one because I was over him after Inception.
No,
I didn't dislike Inception, but it just felt like the same thing again.
It'll be interesting to see when, because I probably will broach Interstellar at some point in the future. So because I do have a lot of thoughts. Yeah. But so when Oppenheimer got announced, but the thing was, in between that we'd had Dunkirk, which was an incredibly unique war film that took a quintessentially Nolan approach to it, but still grounded it in history. And so you got like an idea of the way he looks at history in a way. And then Oppenheimer ggets announced, and you go, okay, this is different because this is actually, autobiographical, rather than Dunkirk. You can still take somewhat, your GI, or not GIs, but British soldiers on the beach and stuff. There's no one that has to be based, but this is actually a movie that's got people that are based in history, grounded in history, very much the central focus of it. And so it was interesting. And just as a history, like, I've always known who Oppenheimer was, obviously, and you as well. Like, we're both history guys. But I read the American Prometheus. It's like an 800-page, like, magnum opus, like,
this film is based on.
Yes, yeah. Right from his birth, right through his death, and everything in between. And that book just sent me, excuse the pun, but sent me nuclear in my excitement for the movie, because when you read, like, and that's the thing, I think so much of us, we know that he was an interesting character, and I had a base idea of the fact that he had been pulled pulled in front of the anti-American activities, or whatever they called the fucking thing, commission of, the Red Scare and the McCarthyism and all that stuff. I knew that he was involved in that, but I didn't know how much of his life was so much involved. Like, and this is the thing, a lot of people on the outside are going, this is just the guy that made the bomb movie, but that is a part of it, but there is so much more to it, which is insane. But I've gone on a complete tangent. But Andrea, I think, since the Barbenheimer stuff has gotten her, like, I think she was going to come. I bought tickets for our IMAX showing like over a month ago, and they're now completely sold out in the day I was going. So I'm glad that we did that. But her excitement was there, and she was like, oh, I'm going to go see it, and she was interested. But it's kind of like the Barbenheimer thing has just made people that weren't so interested in the other side. I think it's a thing now that people are going to do the double feature over this weekend, whether it be opening day or us on Saturday. It has made a thing out of, like, there is going to be people that weren't going to go see both that are going to do it. And this is like kind of the cultural thing we we're talking about before that sometimes is annoying, but this is a positive for cinema, is that there is a hashtag ability of being able to go see both. Like, even Letterboxd that we'll talk about. Letterboxd that we'll talk about. It's going to get a crossover, that this kind of random duality of two movies. Yeah. Well, when we bought our tickets for the IMAX showing of Oppenheimer a month and a half ago, when they first got it. Yeah, I remember sending you the text, and I looked the other day and saw that they're completely sold out every session on that day for the 70mm IMAX. So every session is completely sold out. You can't even click on it to find a single seat. They're just sold out. And
Not
then
even
so
front row.
yeah, and we didn't have our Barbie tickets yet, and I thought, I went, oh shit, I should actually look to see when Barbie, and half of the Barbie showings were limited seating. Basically, if you want to sit front row, Andrea and I could get two. Otherwise, it was nothing, and we don't like sitting front row. So I had to go back to 2 p.m. in the day, which is an hour after Oppenheimer finishes, because we were planning to go get lunch and have some drinks in between. Now, as I said to you off air, Andrea's saying we'll do shots quickly in between. But yeah, it's
I've
created.
seen you do shots. It's bad.
It has created this thing that people are they're crossing over that I don't think would have. It's gonna be interesting to see how the box office numbers coming out, because so much is the predictive numbers sometimes make. I don't know. I still don't understand how people go do the projections and then they perform below expectation and people say it's a flop, and I go, well, until a number is real, then what are we doing anyway? But it'll be interesting to see how the box office numbers come out. What would be more interesting to know, and I don't know how you can quantify this without doing like exit polling of cinemas, but how many people went and saw both this weekend would be a really interesting number. The combined box office of the people that saw both would be a really interesting number to know.
I agree with you completely. Like, I just think like cinemas are so stoked right now. They're like, yeah, we're gonna like about to make our nut for the entire fall, and there's some great pictures coming out this fall already, like that have already been announced. So like I'm sure like this is great. Like I've already said and reiterated, like this is great for cinema and stuff. And like going back to what you were talking about, like it's just like cool to see a story like brought to life that people think that they know and they actually know nothing about because they like have heard about it like when they were growing up or something. And I just really think Barbie is going to be like very cool.
Yes, you're right. We did spend a lot of time talking about Oppenheimer.
I
Then
didn't
because I was
set that joke up well enough. God damn it! I was trying to figure it out how to do it. Like I was talking about Oppenheimer, but like actually talking about Barbie. So fuck, God damn it! Didn't set it up well enough.
That's fine. We're rusty. It's fine.
Canceled by the
No, but you're right. Like Barbie is, and I was interested immediately from the start on Barbie, just because of the writers involved. Obviously, Greta Gerwig's direct. Yeah, yeah. Greta Gerwig's directing, and she wrote it with her husband. They're married, right? Her and Bombach. They're not just partners. At least partner. Like, yeah.
Which I love.
I mean?
Baumbach, obviously.
Yeah.
If you listen to this podcast, you probably know that I like Noah Baumbach.
Yeah. I don't think we've done a Noah Baumbach movie, but yeah, so it's Greta Gerwig involved, which is already just makes you more intrigued than if it was, there's certain directors that you may just go, this is going to be more straight in the line. But when you knew that those two were involved in writing a Barbie movie, it was like, this is going to be different. And then obviously we love Margot. I mean, as an Australian, it is one of our patriotic duties to love Margot Robbie, and it's an easy one to do. It's a lot easier than liking the Australian cricket team after the last 2 days of play. That's going to be very. That's going to be
very. As an American, I also support Margot Robbie, but also Ryan Gosling is one of our best. So, and I think he's like going to play like this character, which slight hint to next week's pod. But
I was actually just going to announce it, so you can do that. You can say it. Say it.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to say what we're gonna do?
Yeah, it's the middle of the podcast. If anyone's listening by now, they might. Hopefully,
we're gonna do Nice Guys because I think it is his. And I'm stealing away from a podcast in the future, but that's what I do with drinking, anyways. Steal my joy from the future. So, yeah, we're doing Nice Guys. And I think it's his most charming role, and I think he is the reason that movie really succeeds. Like, Shane Black is amazing, obviously, but he really brings that life to character. All right, we're not talking about that movie.
Yeah, no.
Okay, shit. Okay, well,
no, but your point being that right.
Trailer. I hate movie trailers too, and I just did it as I just gave too much away.
There'll be plenty more, and I will talk to you on that point as well, because I think Ross is equally important. But yeah, we'll get to that next week. Nice Guys podcast is
Australian.
Yeah.
But
we support our own, particularly the Kiwis we stole, as Russell Crowe is. But yeah, to your point, like I think that's an underrated thing about Ryan Gosling is he's got so many good dramatic roles, and there's going to be a movie I'll throw at you in the future that probably not one that you'd watch otherwise, but I think we're gonna make you do, and yeah, you're gonna make me do movies as well. That's the way it is. Um, but Gosling is such a very great actor that he's had so many, and there's multiple movies that are examples of his dramatic. Is it Blue Valentine's one?
The
Drive.
Slaughter Rule, dude. The
Yeah.
Slaughter Rule. I'm telling you, that movie is fucked, and I think it's a famous director too. I might be David O. Russell who did it, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember watching it when I was like 20, and it fucked me up. So, and Ryan
Uh,
gets indie flick, and like Ryan got man. He
yeah.
can, he can do, but he's also like the most affable human being ever.
Yeah. And again, we won't give away too much of Nice Guys because we'll be doing that next week. But
But large,
there's a lot of
right?
artist, huh?
Large, that's his name, right?
March, God, Holland March.
All right.
Holland marches into his kitchen and gets his arm broken by Russell Crowe. Think about it that way. But yeah, movies like Drive as well, where it's super minimalistic and it's all like in the expression and he doesn't talk much. But then you do movies like The Nice Guys or this with Barbie, where it's all like it's all performance and somewhat, and not without having seen Barbie yet. It's like it's a particular, it's got to be a unique style of acting that, and yeah, so I'm really excited for both of those guys. But then even the outside of that, like as someone who started watching Insecure because Andrea loved it, like Issa Rae's like fucking fantastic in that show,
He's
and
great.
as a writer and creator, she's fantastic as well. So it's going to be really cool to see her in there, and Kate McKinnon's in there, and I can't even think of any of the male Barbies apart from Michael Cera. But I'm really excited to see Michael Cera in a movie again. The last movie I
Love
watched him,
Michael Cera. Glad that he like fucked off for a bit because like people were being way too mean to him about being like what he is like as an actor, and like he's
yeah.
actually pretty good. Okay, so the Slaughter Rule doesn't really have any ties to what we were talking about other than Ryan Gosling. I swore that some like a famous director had ties to it, like he wrote it. So more on that later. We'll get back to you in next episode. But the Slaughter Rule is fucked up and shows Gosling's range, especially as a young man. It came out in 02. So
Mm.
it was like
Yeah,
20,
that's like 2 or 3 years pre Notebook, which is the kind of the blow up movie.
which I've never
Uh,
seen.
I
And
think
never will.
I think it was very similar because I think he was in Remember the Titans, which was 2001.
Yes.
Um,
I remember seeing Remember the Titans and him
mm,
playing country music for the black man. And like, but like him being like, him giving up his position because Ryan Gosling is the man. You know, I don't
mm.
even think his character wanted to do that. And I think he just did that naturally.
Yeah, yeah, he had a little audible in a football movie, so to speak.
He realized his dad was a horrible racist. He's like, wait, what character am I playing right now?
Yeah, no, it's going to be really exciting to see Barbie though. And that's the thing is like, I think I would have. This is what's funny, and I always wonder how culture affects me because I always try to be cognizant of how things are going. But I'm also happy to get like wrapped up in cultural moments because I think it's fun. It's fun to be a part of a moment as a history student. It's kind of fun to recognize you're in a little moment. And I think the Barbenheimer thing is really cool as a cinema lover to be involved in. Like, I think like we would have gone and see Barbie anyway if it was released a month after Oppenheimer. We would have seen both. It would have happened. We were always going to be a part of both of the box office numbers for those movies. Um,
But
but the fact that the buzz has happened and there's all the memes and stuff just makes me more excited to see both of them. And whether that affects how I enjoy them, I don't know. Like as in, I never let buzz let me like I've been as someone who's been a Star Wars fan and all this. Oh, still like Star Wars, but we all know the history of the Star Wars movies, the up and down of the creative influence in there, and how people have received some of them. The buzz is a lot of Star Wars buzz can be both incredibly good and incredibly some of the worst parts of cinema fandom as well. So I'm not someone who gets wrapped up in that because I let I literally just reading an article today about John Boyega from the Star Wars sequels saying how The Last Jedi is the one that he liked the least, which, you know, his character had some interesting decisions in that one that he probably didn't like, but that's the one I like the most. So, but most of the fanboys don't like. So it's like I don't let buzz get in the way of my enjoyment of things, but if anything, when stuff like this happens, I let it enhance my enjoyment of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I'm already going to enjoy both. I'm 99% sure because I have trust in Greta Gerwig and I have trust in Christopher Nolan and I have trust in the entire creative teams behind both movies, the actors, writers, everyone involved are going to be I just have trust that I'm going to enjoy them to some degree. I think that like I never let buzz down cool my enthusiasm. I'm kind of the positive thinker, and one of the rare moments I'm a positive thinker in life really is when it comes to movies. If there's positive buzz, I just let it enhance my buzz for a movie, if that makes sense. I just let myself get wrapped.
Yeah.
I just let myself get wrapped up in the positive fandom and go, this is cool. And so the Barbenheimer thing for me, I think is just it's a really cool thing because, like I said, we were going to see both anyway. But for the amount of people that are, you know, Rotten Tomatoes, I think I shared it to the Pints Popcorn story yesterday. They did like a little street interview thing where they were asking people what their plans are for the Barbenheimer thing, and they were like, so many random people just being like, yeah, we're seeing both. We got tickets for this day. We're doing double feature, and I think that's really good for cinema as a whole. To wrap up the chat, really, that's just what it is. It's anything that's good for cinema, regardless of if you're into it or not, should be celebrated, I think.
I agree with you completely. On that, I will not be seeing them in the same day because I feel like it's just like too much. Like, you know, it's too much in the head.
Mhm.
It's like it's just like I want to enjoy each of them on their own. I don't fault anybody for doing that. Like, it's very cool. Like supporting two movies at the
Oh,
same time.
and neither do I fault you for doing it. Like, this is one of those things that you and I are very strong on. Is like whatever works for you is what works for you as a human, as long as it's not hurting anyone else. Just do you, you know.
Yeah. And there's a movie that I'll bring up in the second half that like when I saw that, like I didn't want to watch any media or content or film or anything after I watched it. I
Mm,
just like wanted to be with myself. And so that's actually like how I feel about a lot of films. Is just like I just want to take it in because a lot of films like leave me like because I don't watch a lot of films for entertainment. I like films that push me,
mm.
you know, and that's like what we've talked. And like a lot of the horror films you recommend. Yeah. A lot of the
You know,
horror
I
films
say that with
push
love.
me. No, but a lot of the horror films you push me into, like it's the same way, but in a different way. You know, it's
Mm,
like just being pushed in different ways. Like I like expanding like where I'm coming from. So it's
mm,
like, and like I have to be like, we talked. There's a movie that came out from my favorite director recently, and it took me a week to see it because I just wasn't in the right headspace before I wanted to see it. Like I wanted to see it opening night when they announced the date, but like when it got to brass tacks, it was just like I'm just like honestly not in the right headspace to like take that in. So and then like so that's like where I am with like film. And I
mm.
like that's not me criticizing anybody else. Like I am a fucking mess. But like but
No,
yeah,
and that makes sense too. Like I've gotten more into doing the double feature thing and stuff, and it's partly because we're just out, and it's part of a benefit of living out here in Los Angeles. Just sometimes the opportunity is just so there that you have to do it, and
you guys
cinema,
have like
yeah. So and particularly the fact that we're going down a Universal City Walk, like right near Universal Studios, there to
right.
see Oppenheimer, and you pay for parking down there anyway, but you get it validated by the cinema. So we're like, well, we might as well see
Oh
both.
really? Nice.
Yeah. It's like $25, and you basically get
That's not even bad.
no, it's not,
I'll talk off air about
or it could be 30. I think it might be 30, and then
not even
basically
bad. That's
no,
not bad.
but then you get $25 back for seeing the movies or something. It's something. It's pretty good actually. You end up only paying $5 for parking, whatever it is, which is pretty good for anyone that parks in Los Angeles knows it can be a shit show. So,
For
but
anybody.
and particularly down like Universal City Walk and Studios and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's like the way people intake, you know, I would rather us have like a couple of hours break between the movies because I would like us to be able to go and digest Oppenheimer and then get into Barbie. But as I mentioned earlier, we we didn't have the opportunity to do that because I should have probably bought the Barbie ticket sooner, but I didn't. It's only as the hype really started hitting, I was just like, I should fucking look into this now, because we were just going to buy them on the day.
Right,
But
yeah.
yeah,
People are into it, which is cool.
yeah, and that's the end thing. Like, I mean, for you, like, you're still going to see both, and there's going to be a lot of people like that. There's probably going to be a large percentage of the overall intake after the movies are done in the cinematic run around the world. It will be a lot of people that saw them at different stages, but I think it's still cool that we have the opening weekend. I don't think, again, I don't know how you quantify this and how you find out every single number of people that went and saw both in a weekend, but considering the difference between the actual movies' themes and the type of movies they are, I don't think we'll ever see, for a while at least, such a crossover of people seeing both just because of an internet meme, basically.
Well, do you think, knowing how, and this is a slight preview to the second half, as always, do you think that the studio execs are going to see like the buzz that was generated by these two movies coming out, and they're going to try to do this shit more often, and they're going to try to manufacture it?
That's an interesting question.
I'll say yes right away for me, because I
Yeah,
know
I can imagine it would take. I mean, if you've got movies coming out from the same studio, yeah, I think
this is
yeah,
the
yeah.
same studio. Here's me being dumb on our movie podcast that's about us knowing movies. Are these the
No,
same?
I actually don't know. I actually don't know. That's like a literally, and I'll like
Cut it, Dave. Cut it from the.
no, we're an
Cut
authentic
this section.
we're an authentic podcast. We don't pretend to know what we don't know,
I
and we're just.
cannot imagine they're the same. Just like the same.
I assume, although Nolan has split from studio. Whatever studio, and this is me. I know Tenet was the first movie he'd done in a different studio since all of his other ones. Which that one, I think he used to be like Warner Brothers for most of those. I mean, particularly with Batman and stuff like that. And then Tenet, there was some conflict, which I think was partly can't remember what happened, but he Tenet was the first movie he'd done with a different studio, and I think he's continuing with this one maybe. So there's been a studio difference with Nolan recently, and so I don't know if that puts them in the same studio or the different one.
It's Warner Bros. Versus Universal, which is
So is Oppenheimer's Universal?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, and Barbie's Warner Brothers,
Yep.
which which if I mean,
I'm sure
people
people
can.
Barbie somehow, like literally, like with Mattel or whatever that shit is.
It's whoever's bought the rights, really, creative rights. But yeah, but I feel like Nolan used to be Warner Brothers. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, and I usually am. So, you know, fuck it. We're fans doing a podcast, so don't quite.
Yeah, he's
don't
on Universal now. So
yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if you do bring up an interesting point, but that would be just to wrap up before we will take a quick break here in a second, then we'll be back to the second half. But it would be interesting to see if studios did try to manufacture it, because anything that you try to manufacture like this never works as well, because this is organic. This is the entire thing we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes is like the organic nature of what they've done with this phenomenon. It all come from fans, you know. It's even the fact that the names could just be somehow put together like Barbenheimer. It just rolls off the tongue. Yeah. So, you know, there's all these different things, and it's just the fact that there's the contrasting styles of the movies, you know, the memes where it's just like I'm not going to talk about some of them on the podcast because you start having to apologize for past atrocities if you don't put the memes in the right context. But there is memes out there where they cross over the pink with the black and white and talk about some bad things that have happened, and it's just like that stuff just doesn't happen manufactured. You just can't do that. People, it's the ingenuity and just the collective mindset of the random fans around the world that make a thing like this happen. So it would be you having the idea that studios would try to do this is not wrong, because as we both are cynics about the people that have too much money and not enough sense,
or capitalism,
and this is a good preview of getting into the second half of the podcast. there is a lot of money involved in Hollywood that doesn't usually get spent the right way. So spending $200 million trying to manufacture a fucking cultural phenomenon like Barbenheimer when it's not really possible is not something I would put studios past if they think they can do it. So, 200, I just threw 200. I don't know how much money it would actually cost, like how much it costs to advertise. It's not that much money,
So
obviously.
much more, probably.
But yeah, no, it would be an interesting thing to see how studios read this, because there's always someone in a room saying, "Hey, have you seen what happened here? Let's try to do that." And then they don't realize that you can't try to do something that was organically created. And that's part of
they'll
the.
try if they're damnedest.
Well, yeah, and we will get into the fact that Hollywood is trying to manufacture real things in a really creepy, fucking terrifying way in the second half. But I think it's about time we take a break because I've had 2 beers. I need to pee, and I'm sure you do too.
Me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on here too. But
It's pints, popcorn, and peas.
yeah.
All right, we'll be back in a moment.
I should have ad-libbed there better.
I know you would. I was just like, you're already on a break, aren't you? I was just like, I guess I'll end it.
I was just like thinking about how angry I was about like something that like we're obviously going to talk about.
We'll take a piss and get fired up, and we'll be right back.
And I'm gonna get fired.
Hey, we're back for the drum roll.
2 halves.
Second half.
And we're back.
It's just like riding a bike.
It's like in the Warriors, like when they clink the bottles, but it's like with a couple pints, it's like pints and popcorn. Come out and play. And it's like, yeah, no, it doesn't work as well.
I know, you've got to do like, doesn't he do it with like, he's got them between the fingers?
He has 3 of them.
Yeah. Incredible movie, by the way. That'll happen at some point, and I'll see if I can finally get Andrea to guest on one because she loves that movie, but I don't think she will because she hates the idea of being on a podcast.
To guest on a podcast.
I've told her this time and time again, but I don't think she will. But I'll keep wearing her down. Anyway, second
Welcome
half.
Back.
It's like I said, riding the back. All right, we're gonna get into the it's gonna be like the negative positive sandwich kind of thing. We're gonna talk about some annoying shit for a while here, but then the end of this we're going to talk about our top 5. I don't know how to describe it, just 5 movies that we've watched for the first time in the last couple of years since you last listened to us that we've enjoyed.
We're gonna have to go quick though for that because like the whole pod has been long.
This is our MO really, so that's fine.
We just have to put time markers into it, so like if people like want to listen to us like get after capitalism for like 30 minutes, then just skip ahead. If you don't want to listen to that, skip ahead. And then
if you don't want to listen to that, then fuck you.
All right, good. Yes, being abrasive towards the listeners.
One of our 2 listeners just logged off. No,
the one in Estonia.
Yeah. Look, we know that talking about it, some people just don't like, just need a break from that stuff. So it's fine. If you want to skip ahead, that's fine. I was joking. But you should always be, at least thinking about and active about the injustices in our world. And it is, it's a fairly high profile. The strike movements are always happening and often we don't know about them. And I think it's one thing that I can't think. This is the ironic part of it. We were at a screening a few weeks back or a couple of months back now for Sorry to Bother You, where Boots Riley was in attendance. Yeah, another movie we've done a podcast on already. Always one that I highly recommend. Whenever people ask me about a movie that they may not know and they should watch, I always say Sorry to Bother You because it's just one of those ones that's weirdly underseen. And even that screening we were at, like the other couple of screenings we've been at that cinema have been sold out and lineups, whereas Sorry to Bother You was half full and it had Boots Riley in attendance, which just says all you need to know about the kind of the subversive nature of it. But he talked about it at the time because the WGA was obviously already in strike at the time, and he just said this is one of the biggest strike waves that's hit the country since the 70s, and just unfortunately, people don't realize the different areas of the country that are in strike right now. But the WGA is kind of leads the line as far as a public facing union that is. And then and it's funny, the writers striking really didn't hit home for many film fans until, as we saw, what, maybe 9 days ago now, I think, was
when the
when,
actors, yeah,
yeah, when the actors, so SAG-AFTRA went on strike, as well as their agreement with the AMTPA expired, and so the actors are in strike now. As we saw in a very high-profile demonstration with the Oppenheimer premiere, I believe it was in London or Paris, I can't remember which, some European place. Um,
I think it
and
was,
we, for
yeah,
some reason, I think it was Paris, but then I have London in my head.
it was not London. I don't
Yeah,
think.
so Paris might be it. Anyway, the cast of Oppenheimer attended the red carpet. They actually moved the premiere up just to sort of like they could at least get their red carpet stuff out the way. Um, and some people saw it cynically as them promoting themselves and then walking out once their promotion of themselves were done. But it actually made it more high profile that actors would leave halfway through a premiere situation. I think it actually added some gravitas to it, so to speak, about the whole situation. So just to wrap it up quickly,
Ridiculous.
the writers. So for people that are listening, which there probably isn't anyone listening that wouldn't know anyway and have some idea, but the writers union, which represents the writers of cinema and all those kind of things, and then the actors union, which is the one that's really got a lot of people aware of the situation now, are both on strike right now. So SAG-AFTRA represents 160 odd thousand actors, but and the writers union similar, but SAG, a lot of the cynics and SAG that don't understand the SAG situation to go, well, they make a lot of money anyway. 87, I think it's 87% of members of SAG-AFTRA don't even make enough to qualify for health
Tag
insurance.
insurance. Yeah.
So it's like $26,000 or something like that. So we're essentially saying 87%
Imagine trying to live on $26,000 a year.
with no health insurance.
No, just 20, like beyond health insurance. Like,
No, but when you add that into it, that's like, especially particularly in America, that's a significant thing to try to,
and
because
like
then
obviously like a bunch of actors and stuff like have side jobs and stuff, but
mm,
imagine trying to live on that. 20.
yeah. So
I don't want to get too far down the weeds on that,
yeah,
but
no,
I,
yeah. I mean that there is that aspect of it too, though, that we were talking about something that is of a wider, and this is something that when I brought up Boots Riley before, he's really actively tweeting and trying to share about it and saying this is something that cannot define both our industry as well as strike movements around the country, because if you start pushing for something with unions can support each other even if they're completely different industries. You can at least be supportive of each other in what you go for, and what you push for can define what another union in a completely different industry, because you can, it's kind of like just, yeah, or the right wingers will say, it would tell you trickle down economics. Well, actually the real thing that works is actual action, defining others' actions, and the thing that can actually happen and the actually thing that can trickle down is unions, defining what other unions can ask for, and defining what the workers and the workers' rights and the rights of hardworking people in any industry can be. And that's what is so important about this, to a wider point, beyond, we'll get into the film stuff in a second and which is the main point, but just to make a quick point on it, is really important to see these two unions that represent something that's so high profile really push forward and not give in to any demands, because we need to see union movements work, to help out unions around the country that do get quashed, and the union squashing movements that happen around by the evil people around the country that run these places. We don't have. I never want to be sponsored by Starbucks. I will say it. Starbucks is one of the big ones. They will happily squat. Starbucks unions trying to move around in the country is one of the biggest things over the past few years, and there's plenty of union busting stuff that happens there. So we need to see stuff like this work, to help out the others around the country.
absolutely, as the son of somebody who was in a union for 37 years, like yeah, unions matter. And
Yeah.
the fact that people don't understand what a union is, or don't understand like why they exist, and then are therefore against them, is so off-putting. Like, I'll just put this new story that's in the news. I'm sure you've seen it, David, but the union, the SAG, whether it was SAG or the Writers Guild, were picketing outside of somewhere in LA, and they had shade, and the people, the CEOs of that corporation, cut all the limbs off trees illegally.
Mm-hmm.
To trim trees, you have to get an ordinance with the city to trim
It's just,
trees.
it's the same in Australia. Like we deal with that shit as well. Yeah.
They cut all the limbs off trees so the people that were striking and protesting in the streets would not have shade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I have to be careful with my words, but I just don't see how you can look at that and see how there's a good guy and a bad guy and not being on the side of the good guy. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. No,
I don't know.
no,
And
I
like
understand your point. It's just like how, like, because there is, and there's certain, Facebook groups I'm in with film and stuff. I just join groups because I like seeing people talk about different things, and whether I don't
we're all about
participate.
the discourse.
Yeah. I don't participate too much, but it has been interesting seeing some of the people in these groups telling themselves and how supportive they are of the conglomerates, so to speak, and you just sit there and go, you're more supportive of the person that can, because this is the other, you're talking about that. There was also that unnamed source or whatever it was that came out. There was a big story just before the actors struck, regarding the WGA strike in particular, that there was some unnamed executive that said they were more than happy to wait out the riders until they're starting to lose their homes. There was a Deadline story I think it came from, but I'm sure it's been quoted everywhere else as well. But I think it was originally Deadline. But and a lot of people, a lot of writers, a lot of people in the WGA shared it and just said this is exactly why we need to be doing what we're doing, because this is what they think of us. They would rather see us starve and out of our homes than come to a deal, and than their expectation. And I think what I hear is in reading is that since SAG-AFTRA struck as well, is that the AMTPA is, and I hope I've got the acronym right. Anyway, I'll correct it in the notes afterwards. That they're kind of in a similar, like they just haven't come to the bargaining table since the strike's begun, because they're just kind of hoping that it'll all just, they'll have to come to the table because they're running out of money rather than the other way around. And that kind of just speaks to the levels we're talking about, is that we're talking about companies, studios that have enough money to talk about just not coming to the bargaining table, whereas you've got the people that are actually struggling to make ends meet. Even the top level actors are a very small part of it. They're the tip of an iceberg. The vast majority, like I said, 87 towards 90%. I can't remember the exact number, but 87's in my head from something I read, of SAG-AFTRA are people that are really struggling to make ends meet. And that's what is ridiculous about the people that are cynics about this and saying, oh, the actors that are on the picket lines are just performance actors, and it's somewhat ironic. But no, they're trying to support. They're doing what you are. People always ask for the people at the front of industries to support the people that are at the bottom, and this is what they're doing. So don't diss it. It's a good thing that they're, yes, they're going to be fine. They've got, they've got wealth to last them a lifetime. Some of them are getting towards generational wealth now. They're going to be fine. What they're doing is supporting the vast majority of the people that make the industry actually run. That's what's happening. And it's the same with the writers industry. Christopher Nolan, who's both a director and a writer, and the Directors Guild could have done better in this whole thing. But anyway, but he's a writer as well. He's part of the WGA. He's going to be fine. But there's a lot of writers that are staffs on TV shows or are part of writers' rooms and stuff like that make a living barely, and they're
They don't see residuals. Sorry, I can't say
yeah.
that. I've never been able to say that word. People say it's the pint. Maybe I need some more popcorn. I don't know. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, you're right. That's actually because I was probably going to start losing my train of thought, but we do need to get into the some of the issues that they're talking about as well. Which one of them is residuals, because the industry has changed, and we were talking about streaming off air, and this is probably a good time to bring it up. Is like streaming has changed things, and residuals is a big part of it.
I just want to yes, that's a good point, and we will talk about that. I just want to say and I know like none of those people are probably listening to this, but I just want to like say to like those writers and like people on the picket line, it's like you guys matter and your work matters. Like it's so frustrating to be like just caught up in like this bullshit fucking like it feels like a tornado or like whatever like of content and just like you're adding to it, you're creating it, and they just like take it away.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's theirs and it's not you, and like you just put all of yourself into that and like you get none of the credit for it. So it's just like to be caught up in that like cyclone of bullshit, and like especially now like with what's going on, like man, I just hope like if anybody who's dealt with that, who's listening to this, like knows that like people know how fucked up that is. And like
Mm-hmm.
not everybody know like but like there are people who really like
Yeah, I mean, the positive side of me likes to think that the majority of the country, and to be fair, if I this is very, it's not much of a poll or anything, but if I go on, like I said, there's some of those people in those groups that are posting like, what are these actors are doing? But then most of the comments and reply are like, you fucking idiot, this is why they're doing it. Like, luckily, most of the comments are people supportive of the strike actions and stuff like that. So I take that as a very small, very inaccurate poll for myself that I at least hope that most, and I do think that most people kind of like, not getting into election stuff or anything, but, we see in every election, most people do actually vote one way. It's just systems mean that things happen the other way sometimes. But same with this is like, I think most of the country is supportive of this kind of stuff. There's always going to be loud mouths that make it sound like the other side is louder than it actually is, or bigger than it actually is. They just, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less you know, the more louder you shout like you do. It's a very bad way of explaining Dunning-Kruger effect. But that's sometimes the way it works. Is like, if you don't know anything about it, the louder you're going to shout that you think you do.
yeah.
So,
I mean
and that's
it
what, yeah.
honestly comes down to that exec saying like, hey, we're gonna like force like that was the worst thing that could have ever happened for the studios is that dipshit unnamed source who said we're gonna try to get them out of their homes and stuff. And
Mm,
it's like I remember seeing like some writer like posting the Bane meme of
mm,
like yeah,
yeah,
you're
we were.
just adapted to the darkness. I was born in the darkness. It's like
I was
yeah,
born in the darkness.
writers. I'm not really a writer, but like I
We would
know
like to. We would like to be sometime.
yeah, and we have
And
plans.
yeah,
But you know what it's like to be poor.
hmm,
And you know what it's it's like especially like when a gigantic corporation is trying to cut off the meager funds that they want to give you. Dude, guess what? We know what it's like to be poor because of you guys.
yeah,
Sorry. Sorry.
yeah. And most writers started from eating probably cup of noodles and stuff in a tiny apartment and trying to make it work. Taylor Sheridan, who's got a massive empire, like there's a really good
Great writer.
a couple of plugs. Like there's a guy called Jeff Goldsmith who does God, what's the podcast called? It's a the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith, I think is literally what it's called. And he does like screenings in LA, and he will like, and it's usually, and he interviews a writer. Like he does it. He has a magazine as well. But so one of his podcasts from probably 4 or 5 years ago now, I think was after. I think it was probably after Hell or High Water, so it's a while ago, or it was Wind River.
Great
One
film,
of
by the way. I
yeah,
don't think we've done it yet, but we will at some point.
we actually have done it.
Classic.
No, 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 no. This is I should have been quicker and not paused and let you. We've done it. It never got released
Okay.
because it was when we were starting, and then I lost the file. So that's my bad. So we're gonna have to
No,
redo it.
I bet
We're
we can
gonna
do it better now,
yeah, no,
honestly.
we're gonna have to redo it because we've got a few
I
years
was
and
in a
it's
dark
and it's
place.
in and it's a good excuse to talk about it again. But
It's an
um
amazing film. Taylor
yeah.
Sheridan's amazing. Yeah.
But he talks about on that podcast. I'll send you the link afterwards, and I'll put it in the show notes of this episode as well. It's a great interview because Taylor Sheridan's he's very Taylor Sheridan's his own person, but he's very forthcoming in his own personal story. And he talks about like, I think he asked him at one point, he's like, what was your motivation for writing this? He's just like, well, I just had a baby. My wife was like crying at the door about where the money's going to fucking come from. So I had to write. I just had to get it done. Like, he's just like, we had no AC. We were living in LA. Like, I had to fucking write. Like, they were talking about Sicario, obviously. I think even Sicario.
Yeah, from our last pod.
Yeah.
That's how I remember we did it. Because
Yeah.
I don't remember us doing that before. So that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So, and
That's
even
good.
Sicario didn't make him a lot of money either. And this is the crux of like a writer's deal is like, you know, writing a movie, like to me, writing a movie like Sicario should at least set you up a little bit. And I know he probably got a decent amount out of the script for that, but he still had to. LA is an expensive city. I know he's got he's made a fair bit of money since then. He's got his empire of TV shows and stuff like that. But at a certain point, Taylor Sheridan was living by the edge of his means. And, you know, that's what all right. And, you know, that's just my example is like all writers started in the dark to bring it back to your Bane thing. And all these studio execs that most of them probably, you know, were, you know, there's guys that have moved up in that industry, but by and large, they're generational wealth people. And, you know,
I mean,
you're fighting a system. You're trying to. I mean, sometimes I wish it was more like France over here because can you imagine? Like the French get like what was it their retirement age lifted and they start fucking lighting fires. You know, we've got one of the biggest industries in one of the biggest states in the country, and something that defines the American experience basically is the movie industry was somewhat created. You know, the movie industry is a worldwide thing, but the Hollywood movie industry is quintessentially American and is the most successful industry around the world. Not any discredit. I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it. It's on my I hear that one's actually that'll be an interesting one to do for the podcast at some point because
I loved it.
It got interestingly received.
I like movies though.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm going to like it too. Andrea loved it, by the way. She went and saw it and loved it. So,
me, Andre, of course, loved it. Of course.
Yeah, we need to. But here's the thing: we need to do an episode with you and her with Promising Young Woman. That'll be the interesting one.
I love Promising Young Woman, and it was going to be one of the films that I was about to select.
Oh, that's a good segue. But anyway, she didn't like it as much as you did, which is we've talked about.
Well, then I'm not selecting it anymore because
no, you've got it. You've got to select unless you've got like a anyway.
No, I better. I better.
Anyway,
no, not better.
But
I like that film a lot. Personally.
Yeah, no, and
but I'm also not a woman in America.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, so it's like whatever.
It's an interesting discussion. Anyway, so we to get into just some of the things.
Laughing about what that movie is about.
Oh no! Just laughing about us going.
Just us being. Yeah.
8 goddamn whiskey sours. But some of the issues. One of the major issues that is coming out of this strike thing anyway, to get back on topic somewhat, is the issue of AI and some of the things that are going to affect the future industry. And it is quite scary to think about because there's been some stuff come out about actually what the studios were proposing, which was, hey, you come in for a day, we scan your likeness, we scan your voice, and then you disappear and you get and you either get paid for the day, I think was possible. Yeah, or per dollar. And it's just like just a stupidly minuscule amount to basically have your likeness in a computer to be used in perpetuity, basically. And this is one of the major things that I don't see talked about enough is like, because people are talking about residuals is a big thing. Healthcare is a massive thing, and healthcare is equally as important. But AI changes if the AMTP got AI through the way that they want to, legitimately, fundamentally, completely destroys and changes the industry. To me, it becomes the Matrix in a way. And I know I am being deliberately somewhat dramatic about it, but it does become a fact. Hollywood changes from being a set of studios where people are coming in and out and door and gates with a security guard checking credentials to a bunch of computer banks storing likenesses. And this is obviously going down the future and the worst case scenario, but because I do also believe there's always going to be a Hollywood industry with act, but you can't replicate. And I'll make a point about this when I talk about one of the movies I will talk about in F5. You can't replicate real. There's no way AI, as good as it is, CGI, as good as it is, if you have the top studio with the best people doing CGI, you can't replicate the real. You can't replicate the movements of whether it be, we talk about the first movie we podcasted about, Leo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt and Once Upon a Time in Mexico. You can have
Not
that.
Once
You could
Upon a
have.
Time in Hollywood, by the way. I would like David fucked up on that one, not
I
me,
did. I
which
am
is shocking. Not me. I did not fuck up on that one. So
Pints and Popcorn. Hey, Once Upon a Time in Mexico is a fucking fun movie, but it's not the
it's a
classic.
great movie. Yeah,
It's
that's
not. It's
fun.
not quite the.
That's a whole fun. Yeah, but
Yeah, it's not.
that's
It's,
a Desperado. It's all tied together, right?
yeah. It is. Yeah. Loosely, but
El
yeah,
Mariachi.
there is the flashbacks to
El Mariachi
a,
as well.
a tragic, yeah, El Mariachi, Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, obviously, what I was talking about. If you'd taken scans of a young Leo and a young Brad Pitt, a
I don't
young
want them
Brad Pitt,
young. Give them to me old.
yeah, and how does AI? So if those guys had just disappeared and then they somehow just made a career out of the AI, like, I could be just talking stupidly about how my understanding of it works, but that's what the fear is, that they're just going to take the likenesses and create a whole history of, this is the worst case scenario. And that's the thing. If you couldn't get Brad Pitt and Leo for a movie, and then you just go, well, we've got your likeness signed off anyway, we're going to use them. You're not going to get those. Brad Pitt's not winning an Oscar for that movie if it's AI Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? And again, this is Blade Runner worst case scenario kind of stuff.
And the AI is
Matrix,
writing the movie too. It's
yeah,
just like, what are we
exactly.
doing? It's like
We
we're like, I don't
don't
know.
don't let don't let the AI foot in the door is the point for me, because as soon as you let the foot in the door, it just opens up a can of worms.
I've been talking about
Oh,
robots
you have.
for years. I've been talking about robots for years, and nobody listened to me, and that's fine. I get it. I'm not that credible. But I've been saying this is going to be bad.
Mm.
Like, this is going to suck. Like, and we're there.
And
If you
that's
don't,
what's
if you're listening to this and you don't think AI can affect your job, guess what? You're wrong.
mhm.
So just I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a downer or anything. It's just a warning shot to the world.
It's very apt when we're talking about this, because this is one of the big things that they've come out. Like the actors and the writers have been very strong on this. Both unions have been very strong that one of their real concerns, beyond, like, obviously residuals have become a major issue, and
As they should
um,
be. As they
as they should
should
be, because when we think about 80s 90s television, and the way, because the last time that they had a deal come together was I mean, oh wait, but like residuals even then were completely different. We didn't even have Netflix streaming at that point. We had Netflix discs in 2008. So it's changed so much since then. And this is one of the points, is that the problem with Hollywood is when things change, it always changes in Hollywood's favor.
Of
It
course.
never changes in the writers. It never changes in the actors' favor.
That's what
Wait,
Babylon's about. Just
mhm.
going back for a second, I think you would really enjoy it.
No, I need it's been on my list of I just haven't it hasn't popped up on any of the streamers we have here yet. So for me to watch,
And
and
it probably won't. And
yeah,
people didn't really like it, but
I think it was misunderstood from how I hear it. But
I
there's a lot of people that I
wasn't
respect,
happy with what I saw. But
including yourself and my wife, and as well as some film critics that I do taken I never let a critic influence me, but I do have critics I
I
respect more
love
than others, and there's a lot of people that I know and or know of that and respect, that loved it. Actually, didn't just like it; they loved it.
I
One of
loved it. I loved
Yeah.
it. I watched it on Christmas though, so it's you get all that complex emotion.
Mm.
And I was obviously blasted. But my dad,
It's Christmas. What else are you gonna do?
yeah, dude, in Lincoln, Nebraska, let's talk about it. But but dad liked it a lot too.
Yeah.
Next to his drunk ass son, he was just like, "Yeah, I thought it was good."
Mm.
I think it could. There's parts that could have been cut for sure, but
Mm.
I think what that, and again, we're fans, not experts. Like, I can't think of the director's name, but I think he could have cut it in certain places.
Is it Damien Chazelle? It's the guy that did Whiplash and La La Land. Yeah.
He did La La Land. Yeah.
Yeah. And Whiplash.
So I think he did, and I know we're going way off topic here, but here we go. I think he did Babylon after like everybody like saying La La Land was like such a suck up to Hollywood. I think he made Babylon, and if you view it through this lens too, then you would completely get it.
That's
And
an
like,
interesting. Yeah. Okay. Having not seen it yet,
I think it's a critique of Hollywood
Mm.
because it starts silent movie era. You know, so it like I think that movie's. If you like film, I think Babylon is really good.
Yeah, and I think that's where I to build off your point, like there is a lot of people that like that beyond the surface level of enjoying cinema. You know, I like going to the movies is not enjoying cinema. Enjoying cinema is actually understanding the history of it and enjoying things that are outside of, you know, if you enjoy certain sections of cinema, it's enjoying a genre. If you enjoy actually cinema and things that push your boundaries, that's actually enjoying cinema. And I think that's what I see a lot of people that enjoy Babylon without having seen it myself are people that are approachable to being pushed beyond what they're comfortable with is generally and you know people, and there's going to be a lot of people that actually don't are not super adventurous with their taste that probably enjoyed Babylon as well. But the people that
I think so.
I think that's where some of the criticism come from is like people just
no, I know that's where it came from.
Yeah,
but it's also like I don't give a flying fuck about those people. I love film.
That's Pints and Popcorn, baby.
Whatever. I'm about to cry on the podcast, so it's fine. And like I like that movie a lot.
Shea tears.
Yeah,
it's a new one.
It happens.
No, that's good though. Like cinema's an emotional thing. So
like I do think. Nah, I don't want to tell you because you haven't seen.
No, don't fucking spoil it for me. No,
but there's a moment in it where I'm just like, no, I'm not even gonna say that.
No.
Whatever.
Anyway,
whatever.
Yeah. To get back on track,
let's go to our top five.
Yeah. I just wanted to wrap because we were halfway through it, but just to wrap it up, the AI thing should concern people, and this is why I think this is you know, I think the WGA and the actors have a lot of issues on the table. There's, like I said, residuals, there's healthcare, there's all these different things on the table that usually come to the table when it comes to strike actions as far as the rights for the workers and stuff like that. But one of the very unique things to their industry that has come to the forefront before it has come to a lot of ours, but it will come to a lot of industries in the future, AI. Think about supermarket checkouts. It's already there to a certain extent, but the WGA and SAG
actually like that, but that's a whole different story.
I know. We've talked
one thing where they still can hire teens to like stock shelves and stuff. Like they're we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but the fact is there's a very real concern there and that's one of the main things that's been raised in the news afterwards. And I think people that are listening to this podcast, a few of you out there, thank you, love you
guys. I love you guys more than I love myself, which is the bare minimum. But
I was gonna say I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But yeah, I think it's just one of those main things to look at, and I don't want to speak on it too much more because we'll get to the positive of talking about some movies here before we finish. But I think it's just something that you should all be aware of is like the AI issue with actors and writers is very real, and it should concern you. And the fact that if studios can come to the actors and without a sense of even any remorse go, hey, we're going to scan you and like do this, that was a very real proposal, then we should all be worried about just where this is going, and even just beyond that, just for in whether it be your representatives and stuff, just be keeping an eye on anything that comes out as far as laws and anything based on AI. Like just keep an eye on it, because it's I'm not an alarmist. I don't, I think there's great things about, like, we're doing a podcast with me with a fucking fancy background, on the other side of the country to each other. So there's great benefits to technology.
Other side of the country, by the way.
Yeah.
Mentioned. Finally,
yeah.
Fucking.
Yeah, not 16 hours apart. We're just 3 hours apart now.
Still hard.
Yeah.
So, I hope
But
you guys.
a little bit easier. It doesn't feel so bad drinking beer at like 2 in the afternoon while you're at 5, rather than one of us in the morning and one of us in the middle of the night or something like that.
We made it work.
But yeah, it's just something to just, yeah. It's I always encourage people to just, even if you're not interested in news or history or anything, like just at least keep an ear out for it, because if you're a voter, then all these things are all these little things that happen throughout history. You might not think it matters now, but then, a few years down the track, because AI, like you said, you've been talking about robots for years, and AI and artificial intelligence and shit. Terminator came out in fucking 1984. We're almost 40 years removed from
Yeah,
that
we're
goddamn movie.
almost
And we're almost 40 years removed from that goddamn movie, and now the actors and writers are striking because one of the major things is they didn't want to be replaced by robots. So keep it in the back of your mind. It's not to be scared about it, because the future of the world can be good if you keep an eye on things and make sure you work out your votes and your actions the right way. Am I hopeful? No, but you can be. Anyway, let's talk about some
Just look
fucking.
out. Just look out. Just look out for yourself, kids.
Yeah, exactly.
I
All
believe
right,
in you. You're smart people. Like
exactly.
fucking
Every generation.
know that
Yeah.
like it's coming for you and it sucks. So fight back against it.
Exactly. Fight for your rights. To party.
No. This podcast has already fought for its right to party. And we won, and it was bad.
And no, but yet we continue to party. So that's a thing. All right.
Yeah.
So to finish
Cut,
off,
that's a thing from the podcast. Because that's bad.
cut. That's a thing from the podcast. Make that a shirt. That's a thing.
Siri, AI, cut. That's.
Don't say that. My fucking phone just lit up. You dick. God
Oh,
damn.
I was making a joke about AI.
Yeah, and I don't want my phone killing me right now. So anyway, movies. All right. So I proposed this thing to Shea as a way to finish this opening podcast of us just getting back and talking film, which I actually think has gone very well. Like I needed to find my rhythm again doing this, and this is what this entire intro back into it was. And to finish off, because I didn't want to finish off on talking about the strike stuff, because you don't want to leave people with a little bit of happiness.
You leave on a make.
Yeah. So I sent.
If you're a hooper, you leave on a make.
Yeah.
If you're
It's a walk-up.
Boats, who I assume listens to us, like you leave on the perfect stitch. I don't know. Like I don't know, man.
Wait, who were you talking about? A perfect stitch?
Like a culture. You leave on the perfect stitch. You're like, oh, that one felt right, and you're like, all right, I'm done for the night. I was just trying to
Is that a thing?
I don't know. I was just trying to say, what else are people into other than sports? This is
well, you've lost me.
All right, good.
The perfect stitch.
The perfect stitch.
The perfect stitch. That's gonna be a shirt at some point, and I'm gonna somehow make stitches out of film rules, and it's gonna be a thing.
Dave. Cut it out.
Cut this out. That's like the third time you've said that this podcast.
I know
and none of it's gonna get cut out.
Our producer. I'm calling you Dave, not David. When you're our producer.
Producer's a loose term, because I don't cut anything out.
I know. Yeah, I know.
And yet you're still coming back.
I was trying to I don't know what other people's hobbies are.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I don't know how to make analogies for because we're talking about walk-off home runs, like walk-off touchdowns.
Let's talk about film.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to get to. All right, so I sent this idea to you, and it was just 5 films that we've discovered in the last couple of years since we last recorded. So it's not that they may not have come out in the last couple of years, though most of mine have. That's just the way.
I did all of them within the past since.
Yeah. Well, so that means
there's. Here's what it is, and they're all known films, but it is what.
No, and that's great. That was actually the original point that I was going to do, and then you asked, could it be something? And then I found one that I discovered that's from 1980, I think. So yeah, you actually put me onto that, but most of my thing was the fact that just the 5 movies we've seen in the last couple of years, which is always going to be dominated by recency bias, which is fine because there's been a lot of good movies in the last couple of years.
It's hard to rolling in the old noggin.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, I think we're gonna have I think there's going to be one crossover. This is going to be interesting to see, though. I'm going to let you go first, and then we'll offset as we go. And then if you say one,
it's not a draft, but
but if you say one or I say one that is one that we've then we'll talk about it together and say I had this one in mind, and we'll talk about it rather than doubling up. Right. So all right, you go first.
All right, first pick because I know it's on the board because nobody's taken it yet. I'm taking Banshees of Inisherin.
That was mine there too. So there we go. All right, so that's the one. That's the crossover I was talking about.
Number 1 pick.
how well do we know each other? The fact that I was and that's the first one that we go with. So that's one. So that's gonna be already down to 9 films for the total. But that's fine too because
it really did not win any awards.
It didn't win enough for the film. It is as unique and so this is my thing when I was thinking about it. And anyone that's an OG listener that listened to our original run of podcasts will know, particularly if you listen to the Fargo podcast, we talked a lot. I don't
remember doing that one either, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, you and I talked a lot about in that movie about verbal conflict and how engaging that can be if it's written well and acted well and filmed well as well. There's 3 different things that come into it. You can have 2 people in front of a camera talking and it can be boring as hell, or it can be great. And in Fargo, you had Frances McDormand and William H. Macy in a cafe on the surface level having an amicable conversation, but below the surface was something very real and Frances McDormand's little okay. just a little like just the acting and everything about it, and it made it so engaging. And the Banshees
her knowing everything,
exactly.
But just her saying okay, yeah, and that whole movie, and it's just like Colin Farrell like coming to terms with himself of like maybe I'm not like, and I think like that's like man's great struggle, which I think like that's the old English thing is like
I'm sure this is going to be a movie we'll do a full episode on at some point. So
absolutely, it's incredible. It's an incredible film. I think like as a I'm missing the word right now, but it's obviously Martin McDonagh's like commentary on the Irish Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Like incredible, like the way that he presents it, like with a fictional island off Ireland that actually exists. Like it's just like it's like when Colin Farrell like is looking at them fighting from across the channel, him saying like, "Good luck, boys. Like whatever you're fighting for, good luck." And it's just like, fuck, man. Like I don't know. It just has everything, and like I know people like think it's slow or whatever, but like I think it's like the perfect like I don't know. He encapsulated the Irish Civil War in an artistic way that I don't think anybody else ever could have done.
In a way that is not in a way that is not a war film at all whatsoever. Yeah, because there's some great movies out there about different like parts of that era of Ireland, like The Wind That Shakes the Barley and movies like that. But for this movie to just be an allegory for it, but then have so much about just just relationships beyond the greater notion of the Civil War, just relationships between people. I'm missing the actress's name right now. We'll get it for the full podcast, but the one that plays his sister is just wonderful and so just wonderful. But Colin Farrell and
award as well.
I was really and obviously Barry Keoghan in that just heartbreaking role. There's so much, and it's one of those movies that just
good. He's so good in everything he does. I sent you.
Yeah, we'll do the Killing of a Sacred Deer at some point as well, and he's one of his first breakout roles, I think. If I'm thinking,
he also had you were wrecked hungover one day, and I don't blame you because we're cut from the same cloth. That's why we're brothers.
Yeah.
But I sent you a scene that was cut from the latest Batman film, which I don't think you would have selected in your top 5. All right, I fucked up. All right, I fucked up. Not the first time on this podcast.
Wait, is that in your top 5 as well?
No, not at all. Was it in yours?
It is. I'll bring it up next now that we've gone into it. But
no. I want one. I want one on your list.
I didn't do mine in order. I just did mine in the.
Yeah.
I didn't do mine in order.
One in order because that's the one I wanted.
That's great as well. And look, Banshees, just to close off on it because we don't want to get into it too much because we'll do episodes. I think all these movies will probably get an episode at some point. Actually, no, they all won't because I know there's one in here that there's a. I chose some deliberately because I knew they wouldn't be on yours. But Banshees was one of the most beautiful films I've watched in the last couple of years. Beautifully choreographed as far as the cinematography goes, written, and Martin McDowell's just. Martin McDonough is a fantastic writer and coming
that
from
was my bad. I said that earlier. I knew it was wrong when I said it, and it was just like, fuck.
It's fine. I saw Martin McDowell in a movie in cinemas recently, so he's on my mind. But it's such a beautiful film, and if you haven't seen it already, see it so then you can be prepared for when we do an episode on it.
It deserves more than it got at the Academy.
Yeah, it did. It got beaten out by some films that just had some hype, but I actually think Banshees is one of the best films of the last few years. So that's just how the awards go. All right, so I guess I should talk about it now since we've already brought it up. The Batman. This is one of my. I didn't pick all films that I think are the best films I saw. I just ones that resonated with me in a certain way. And the Batman, when I saw that, so this is the Robert Pattinson. I can't even think. I haven't even got the director. This is how off the cuff we've done this. I don't have directors' names or anything like that. I'm just going off. This is all vibes. This episode of the podcast. But the Batman character has an interesting cinema history, and the fact. There we go, Matt Reeves. Yeah. The Batman has an interesting cinema.
Guy I used to buy whippets from. Just kidding. I have a job like a real human being. Whatever.
It's but the Batman has an interesting cinema history with starting from what was it, Val Kilmer? Who was the first? Yeah, we're just. Oh, so yeah, sorry, Michael Keaton.
Come on, man. You're the guy that's supposed to keep this thing afloat right now, and I'm like, you're struggling. You're the Batman. I'm Robin.
Val Kilmer's a better Batman.
Val Kilmer's a terrible Batman.
I just love Val Kilmer. So
I'm Batman.
No, I grew up not having seen many of the original. I didn't see many of the original my fan
the two that had Michael Keaton.
Yeah, so we didn't grow up in those ones, right? So
those are big ones. Though.
Yeah, but in Australia, my family just didn't watch them much. So I saw them as an adult at the same time as I saw the Nolan one. So I'm not making criticism about who's better. It's just my introduction to Batman was the Nolan movies more than and to be fair, I saw Batman and Robin, the complete disaster apparently that it was before I saw anything. Yeah, and I liked it too because I was fucking 9 when I saw that movie. So I'd seen that one before I saw the other one. So I thought that one was cool. And then I grew up and heard that one was bad and these other ones are good. But because I have the nostalgic 9-year-old memories, I'm like, I liked Arnold Schwarzenegger all covered in ice. Whatever. Sue me. So I have an interesting history myself with the Batman character, but the Batman character has an interesting history in cinema, probably unique to many other superheroes because it's been through so many great eras. And because obviously as I mistakenly said, the Michael Keaton and it's funny because Michael Keaton's back in cinema as Batman at the moment in The Flash, which I haven't seen and don't plan to at any point, to be honest. Because I'm done on too many superhero movies, but
right.
Saying
it's wild
saying that
thinking about that.
Yeah. But saying
It's
that,
like,
like, so we've gone through Michael Keaton. Sorry, I just want to try to get through this point.
no, it's cool.
We've gone through Michael Keaton in that era, and then we went through Christian Bale and all that, and then that brief period with Ben Affleck in the DC universe there, and then we get
Don't
to
even
Matt.
recognize it. Didn't
Yeah,
watch it.
but apparently he's actually not that bad. But anyway, but then
But
we get to the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman. And I remember when this got announced, and it was like Robert Pattinson's going to be Batman. Like, what the fuck? But then we get this movie that is this beautiful noir detective story, grounded. That doesn't. He's not like. He's just. It was just it changed things again for that character, and I think it's just such an interesting thing for his cinematic journey as a character, that we've seen this character go through so many different things. And I honestly think it's whether it's the most rewatchable Batman, I don't know, but whether it's the best Batman, I am willing to have that discussion because I think that movie grounded it in such a way that is so real, and the music and the vibes of it, like that Nirvana song that just repeats throughout the movie as rain
something in the
slow.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, something, and then the score is just it's so simple yet it's so effective, and I just remember coming out of that movie because I went to that movie having already seen that the reviews were decent, and I was just like, okay, cool, like I'm looking forward to this. But I came out of it just and it's stuck in my mind, and it has since then, and I just haven't forgotten about it. And I think that's what this section of the podcast I wanted to do was like movies that stuck with me over the last 2 years, really, because I've only seen it twice still, but it just sticks with me. The thought, like the feeling I had watching it, and it had there was a certain human element to the character that was absent from a lot of the more classic superhero things. Like there was a without getting they didn't get too much into his character. Like obviously we know the history of Bruce Wayne and all that stuff, but there was still a scarred nature to the Robert Pattinson's performance in that movie that really, and I think it's just it comes down to Robert Pattinson actually being a really good actor that, and I'm sure we'll do some of his movies in the future, which is
Hey,
hey, good for him after being he was a Twilight guy for so long, but he's actually proved himself as an incredible actor and very
and
many.
Good Time is something we should probably do. I think we've already
Yeah,
talked about it a little bit, but
we briefly discussed it when we did Uncut Gems, but yeah,
which people say Good Time is better than Uncut Gems, which
Good
is
Times
probably.
and Good Times incredible.
I mean, it's up there. I mean,
Mhm.
with Uncut Gems, I mean, you want.
Uncut Gems has a certain gravitas to it that is hard to fight with, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Um, but yeah, my one thing on that film is that scene where he walks through almost immediately in like his Batman like garb,
Mhm.
and like all of the Gotham PD like hates him immediately. Like they're just like this freak is walking through. Like that is what sold me on that immediately. I was like,
Mhm.
yes, I'm in. It's like they hate this guy because he's like this fucking like freak vigilante, but
Mhm.
like their commissioner is like cool with him. So like that's what really got me
Yeah.
that film
Yeah.
immediately. Which
Yeah.
like
No.
he walks into this room like slowly, and like something in the way might be playing. And he walks in and like it's just a bunch of cops like screaming at him almost.
Yeah,
Like
and he really, and the only reason he's allowed into those rooms because he has a trusted Gordon, and there's like,
yeah,
there's just
exactly.
one, there's basically one guy, and it's just like it seems so much more real
Yeah,
than
it did seem very
yeah, and it's what, and that's why I'm so intrigued by what they do with the next because they're doing another movie, and I think what immediately the my last point before I'll throw to you to see your next movie. What sticks with me is the fact that the Nolan trilogy really is something that I loved that that happened through my early to mid 20s.
I
And
liked
so,
one of them.
yeah,
I'll say I like one of them.
I like them all, and I think Batman Begins is on par with the Dark Knight, and then Dark Knight Rises is somewhat subpar, but it's still good. Um, so I really enjoyed them all, and I didn't expect a, a Batman movie to surpass my expectations, particularly one that comes in a completely different universe, like rewriting the story again, because you sometimes get tired of it, and the fact that they somehow made a movie that is so different and unique with the Batman character I think is something you should commend, and so
I
that's why
agree.
I had to put it, and that's why it stuck with me, and that's why without even going through my letterbox as I did to remember some of the movies I'd seen, the Batman was already in my mind because it was like this just
Good flick.
stuck with me as a fun cinematic experience, which is part of what we do this podcast for. Anyway,
Yeah.
your next one.
Oh, my next one. All right. I want to say that I did like the film a lot.
Yeah. No,
If I say
I remember us talking about it, and we were both
great
like,
Colin Farrell performance. He was in both the first two movies we listed.
yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and say Licorice Pizza.
That's an interesting one.
Little PTA on the crowd. I know like a lot of people found it like creepy and stuff, but I don't like also like I feel like you have to be able to tap into like we don't live in where that was set.
Yeah,
Like you don't
yeah,
live in 1970s LA. You know who did? Paul Thomas Anderson. And he just posted something and he put Philip Seymour Hoffman's kid in it, and it was just amazing.
yeah.
So that's in the last 2 years, that's one of my favorite films. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because I enjoyed it, and I'll say that I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as I have some of his other films. So that's
Well, of course.
and
Made
to
amazing films.
yeah, I guess we're talking a pretty high bar.
I mean, he set a high bar.
Yeah,
We've done Magnolia on this
yeah.
podcast.
And I guess some of his movies do wander a little bit. I just found this one wandered a little bit more. And maybe it's just, man, maybe I was I watched it as I was finishing working in Australia, and I was like starting to sort things out to come over here. And so I watched it and living here and knowing the San Fernando Valley and just LA a little bit as well. So I love his films and how he, shows
Paints
those things. I just didn't enjoy it quite as I enjoyed it a lot. I just had a quick look at my letterbox to remind me what I gave it. I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. So I enjoyed it enough to 3.5's like I enjoyed it a lot. It just didn't quite hit a bar for me. I don't know what it was. And it's nothing to do with and I will agree with you on the because people go, oh, it's just 16, 17-year-old kid dating a 24, 25-year-old, I think it was, wasn't it?
I think that's different back then, and I don't even want to address that.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's your point being that it's okay to portray something on screen and address it as some because it does get addressed in the movie. This isn't right.
I think the fucking entire subplot of it is that.
It is, yeah. It is the fact that we probably
mid-20s.
Yeah. So without getting into it too much, because we don't want to get cancelled, whatever. It's not like if we ever do this movie, that is a big subplot of it, and we'd have to talk about it. But yeah, it annoys me sometimes. I
really enjoyed it. I did really enjoy it.
Visually, it's stunning as well. It's a movie and I've only seen it once. I probably need to go back and revisit it because PTA's movies sometimes do need to be revisited for a full.
Oh, they all do.
Yeah.
But other than
the only movie,
you guys will get it right away.
No, actually, the only movie that hit, like even Boogie Nights needed a couple of watches for me. The only one that hit first time was There Will Be Blood. I just fucking was blown away the first time I watched that movie, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but yeah, it's
in Masters. The
Master I haven't seen yet. It's on my list, but I need to see it. I know we've talked about this before, but yeah, I need to see the Master.
Yeah, I don't want to watch again. It's just makes I want to come up with a word for it for this podcast because other directors have brought it up in me before, like maybe Lars von Trier, maybe, but like other directors too. Like, it's just
great movies that you can watch once.
I appreciate what you did, and it was beautiful. Is not the right word. It was artistic, but like I don't ever want to see what that was again.
I can't wait until we have to do a Lars von Trier movie then, because I feel like we need to.
Dude, I would love.
Oh no, dude!
I think Melancholia is amazing.
Melancholia will be a fun one. I think The House that Jack Built would be an interesting one to do too.
That one.
Oh, that's a fucking ride.
Is that the one with
Matt Dillon?
Yeah, Matt Dillon.
Yep.
As a serial killer.
He's a serial killer, and yeah. We won't get into that right now. We'll get into that when we do that podcast. All right, my next movie.
Next flick.
All right. Which one do we now? I'm gonna bring this one up first before I do the next one. You haven't seen this movie, and I don't know if you ever will, but so it'll be a quick one. But Terrifier 2,
No, I
um,
know. Yeah.
yeah, this one. So this is a horror film, and I think what it did for cinema and horror cinema in particular was great because the original Terrifier movie, incredibly low budget. Terrifier 2 was pretty low, but I think the first Terrifier was like $50,000. Terrifier 2 maybe in 100, $200,000, like still low budgets. It's a guy, God damn it, his name is always on my mind, and now Demian Leone,
Yeah.
out of the East Coast. He's a guy that grew up on horror movies, grew up learning how to do makeup, special effects, all those things. Having watched and so the first Terrifier, Andrea and I discovered on like I think Shudder, possibly. Like Shudder's a horror specific um streaming service. We discovered it in Australia a few years ago, and we watched it and loved it. And it has some incredibly gruesome special effects. Acting is fine, actually. I think it's pretty good for it. I think it's for a low budget movie. It's better than a lot of movies that get $10-20 million budgets. So to be fair, and it had a couple of decently known actors, like Jenna Cannell was in it. She was good in it. Has a woman getting split in half with a hacksaw. Like it is brutal, but so that movie, but the character Art the Clown, which is just a character that never makes any sound, and David
Scary
Howard,
though.
yeah, David Howard Thornton acts it incredibly. He's basically a sadistic mime in a way, dressed in this black and white
Black
clown
and
suit.
white. Black and
Yeah,
white.
and his acting performance is incredible because he does this great smile. He laughs without making any sound. Then when he does his evil, like he does his "I'm going to kill you" stare, like his face he turns into a completely different person. It's an incredible performance, and the fact he's just like Leone found these people just randomly, like he just found this guy that just was perfect, like better than anyone he could have probably found for a lot more money. This guy was perfect. So but what Terrifier 2 did was it comes out and it gets this word of mouth thing that doesn't Hollywood was built on word of mouth in the past, like movies, cinema, and horror cinema in particular has been built on word of mouth. It's this movie's going to fuck you up. There was the stories about people passing out in the cinema, people throwing up in the cinema because of Terrifier 2. And while I went and saw it and was like, oh, this is fine, I'm a horror hound, so I get it. Like I can watch anything when it comes to horror at this point. I just mentioned watching A House That Jack Built. That's a fucked up movie. But Terrifier 2 took double the budget, and I talked about it before when we were talking about AI and stuff like that, and how you can't replicate real. Damien Leone's a guy that comes from the Tom Savini school of, like, Tom Savini's the special effects master, and behind so many horror movies, The Burning, Friday the 13th, all the way through. He's the guy with the little gun on his dick in Friday and From Dusk Till Dawn. He's an actor, he pops up in movies as well, and he's an actor as well, but he's a special effects master. And Damien Leone talks about meeting this guy as a kid and just being, and when you watch the special features of Terrifier, you see how much work goes into it. It's like off screen is a guy with a hose that has got fake blood, and they just have to hit the marks as they're chopping down on the body they've created. There's a guy off screen blowing into a hose, blowing blood as they're hitting, like, they've got a time hitting the body, and so this movie comes out
Better get
at,
it on the first take.
yeah,
Because
yeah, and they're beating the shit out, and they've got people, like, with the heads in one spot, and then a character, like a creation of their body right next to it, and it all, like, looks really realistic too. There is some CGI in it, like when there's a glowing sword and there's a lore that's building. They're making a third Terrifier now. It's going to be great. Can't wait. But what this movie did was become a word of mouth sensation that Terrifier 2
oh
has.
yeah, I saw it and I hate this shit. If anybody has listened this far into the podcast, then you probably know both of us, so it doesn't even matter for me to say. But at the same time, I know about this clown, this black and white clown.
He's popped up in a Pete Davidson show, that Bupkis show.
Yeah, maybe that's how. But
Yeah.
I didn't watch that show, but like I also know, like, the clown, it's like our modern, like, horror guy.
Yeah. And that's what's incredible about it, is that it's become from essentially nothing. It's come from a guy's creation. and it's come from hard work. Like what they did with Terrifier, the first one was hard work. What they did with the second one was incredibly hard work, and they made a 2.5 hour. Because horror movies don't usually go 2.5 hours either, and Terrifier 2 is a long horror movie,
Yeah, man. I need a horror
and they
movie.
made it
5 minutes tops.
yeah, and they made it work, and they made it become this sensation that it was coming out in cinemas for a week, and then it blew up, and they were like, all right, cinema's going to keep it for another week, and it ended up staying in cinemas for over a month, and it just kept on getting, and it wasn't like this is just going to be the run. It just kept on being like on his social media, and then just the Terrifier accounts just be like, guess what, Terrifier 2 is going to be in cinemas another week. Don't make sure you don't miss it. And I was sick when I got back from my visit here in Australia, so I went back to Australia in October. I missed it a couple of times. And even in Australia, it kept on getting another week. And that's just how it was global. And that's what, you know, not to get into the horror specifics of it too much. It's just the fact that a movie could become a word of mouth classic like that, like movies did used to be. It used to not be, it became
crossed over into like real. It crossed over into like the real lexicon.
Yeah.
Of because like I knew about this clown without like, and you're my best friend, and I knew about him before you told me.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And when it's getting into your world, because you're not a horror guy like
no, not at all.
I am.
Like it's
Yeah.
like I'm like just like slightly tapped into like the culture. And so then like the culture responds, and it's just like, yeah, and it's just like I recognize that clown because
yeah. So I went and saw it in Australia like at 9 p.m. on a Sunday night after I'd finished work, and I think I'd just recovered from being sick. I had COVID for a second time, I think, and I just remember like I got a little drunk beforehand, had a good time watching the movie, and just was just like, this is such a cool moment to be a part of. Again, like what I wanted to bring up this section for. So, all right, your next one.
my next film. All right, fuck it. Well, I had to take it. Any fan, which probably doesn't exist at this point, but any fan of me would know that I'll take Asteroid City.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm excited.
Exactly, and so I'm not gonna like waste anything. Like, I'm just gonna say like that was a good film, and I'm gonna parlay it with French Dispatch. So that's just like two of my picks in one. Like I love Wes Anderson. If you're listening to this podcast, I love Wes Anderson. It doesn't really matter like what he makes. Like I think Grand Budapest is the best thing that he's made in the past decade, but that's fine. And he's still making films, but like he's still making films that he wants to make, and like I respect that. And like he's making films that are, and I know you haven't seen either of those yet, so I don't want to give anything away, but like he's making films that like, I don't know. Like anybody that wants to talk shit about like Wes Anderson being like a hipster, blah blah, it's like look at all the actors and actresses that want to work with him. Tom Hanks was in fucking Asteroid City. Like Margot Robbie was in Asteroid City.
You just look at the trailer, like the trailer when it spins through the names that are in there. It's just like there's just abundance.
And it's just like I want you and Andrea to see the film so I can talk about Margot Robbie's performance in it. But if I say a single thing about it, it will ruin the film. So it's just like, yeah. That's
is she? Well, this is the thing because Andrea's not a big Wes Anderson.
We're not talking about it because you
no. I'm not asking you any specifics. I'm just saying Andrea's not a big Wes Anderson fan. She likes Rushmore. She didn't like Life Aquatic, and I don't think she likes any of the others. Like I think Rushmore's the only movie she likes. Is Margot Robbie memorable? That's all I'm asking. Yes. Okay, there we go. That's all I need to know because that's what
you can get at that. That's it. One word response. All right, your third movie. Go.
It's actually my fourth movie technically because Banshees we tied up on. So,
okay, cool. Yeah, I was gonna say like this is gonna go way too long if like we.
So my second to last movie is, and again I know you haven't seen this, but Top Gun Maverick.
No, never. I'm gonna actually go ahead and talk about this. I'm literally gonna go pee.
This guy's a dick.
But actually talk about it. Say why it's good, but I'm literally gonna go pee.
Yeah, no, you're good.
No, I'm gonna mute though. So you don't have to listen to me pee.
Well, first of all, listeners, I'm really mad that he's muted this because wanted to hear him pee on the podcast. But Top Gun Maverick was. I mean, I don't need to say too much about it as far as its impact on cinema because I think we all know that, yeah, the Tom Cruise safe cinema thing is like a little bit overdone a little bit, but there is an element to what Top Gun Maverick did to the excitement of the cinema experience, the excitement of being part of a moment, because so much of this modern movie watching experience is people talking about movies they've seen on streaming and they've seen it maybe over a space of a couple of weeks. For a few weeks there, it was like if you wanted to talk about Top Gun Maverick, you had to go to a cinema. And Top Gun Maverick was such a cinema going experience. And I think we're going to see that with Oppenheimer and Barbie to a lesser extent this week too. Is like there is a lot of movies that still, unless you have the best whiz bang home theater experience that money can buy, you still can't quite get the full experience of seeing a movie in cinema unless you go and see it. Like and Dune was one of those as well. And Top Gun Maverick was one of those movies that just made the movie going experience wonderful. It's not deep; you don't have to think about it too much. But it just was 2 hours of sitting in your seat and being blown away by sights and sounds, and that's part of the cinema experience. And there was good action in it too. I mean, I've seen there's criticisms that basically the storyline is somewhat the Star Wars storyline, and I'm like, yeah, and I love it.
Everything is stealing from everything.
Yeah, and movies like Top Gun Maverick don't shy away from that too either. They even recreate the volleyball scene a little bit in it too, like from the original Top Gun. Yeah. There's
You'll never get me to agree that I'm into.
No, I'm never gonna I'm probably gonna make you watch it at some point for the podcast just to have it.
No, never. It's not happening. I'm sorry. Yeah. I guarantee
it's gonna happen at some point.
Are way more into your take on it than mine. But I'm just no. I'm sorry. It's just not for me.
Anyway, it was for the purpose of like movies that came out in the last couple of years. This one was a moment in that did break what people's ideas of what people's fears of what cinema would be post COVID. Top Gun Maverick reminded people that you could make a movie that became a cinema experience, and people want and because so much of what we've seen over the last 5-10 years has been streaming moments and people that can start word of mouth starts going around and it's like, oh, we stream Stranger Things, okay, I'll go home and watch it tonight because I can easily do that. Top Gun Maverick was for a couple of months there. If you wanted to be part of the water cooler conversation, you had to go out and see it at the cinema. And that was the way to see it too. That's what was part of the conversation was this movie works in the biggest, best cinema you can see it in. And that was a good thing. And I know that you don't want to, the storyline and all that stuff is nothing for you, but the filmmaking technique and experience and the things they broke ground in filmmaking and how they can make shots happen that happened in that movie is something that genuinely matters. So yeah, I mean they put like
matter.
They put like 5 million cameras in real fighter jets and had actors go up and get fucking flung around for a couple of hours, and then they had to come down, find the footage, work out what worked, and then go, oh shit, your face didn't look right there. Go back up there and do it again. And there was just and the way they had to figure out how to fit these great cameras into tiny little cockpits and make it happen was just there is ingenuity in and all these things. You know, it's kind of like this is a sideways point, but people that don't like F1,
Sideways, amazing film.
Yeah, we're going to do that at some point. We'll talk about that the other day. But Formula One as a sport, a lot of people don't like it. There's a lot of safety innovations that the cars that we have now come from racing because they figure it out for the races first, and they figure out it works for people too. There is a lot of things that we don't have in cars now that don't happen unless we have racing as well. There's like this weird thing, and so there's a lot of things you'd figure out eventually, but you figure out faster because there's racing teams that have a lot of money involved that have to figure it out first, before the lazy car companies have to figure it out later. And the same thing with things happen accidentally in film. It's just like you have to figure out a fucking way to make a shot work for the script that you've written. So really talented people make it work. And in movies like Top Gun Maverick, even if you don't like it, even if you're never going to see it, in the future there'll be a movie you watch that you'll like, that something will come from a movie that like that. And that's the Hollywood thing, is it's like it's all a ecosystem that makes things, you know, people learn things. And that's cool.
Oh yeah.
And action movies are fucking fun. Pretentious Shay.
Are you done? Are you done?
Hey, give me your last. Is it your last movie now? I can't fucking remember.
Who even knows, dude?
I actually had mine written down, so I know. But did you have yours written down?
No, I just know. I just know movies I like.
I can't remember how many you've done. So
No, we're on like 3 right now, but like we.
oh
like,
no! I've done 4 of mine, so you have to be on your last one.
Well, I went off on my first one. Whatever. Okay, perfect. Okay, we set off to do this podcast like it was like us talking about movies at a bar. So this is perfect. So who even knows? Like, yeah, like tell me your favorite 5 movies of the last 2 years. It's like that's so hard. Like how would you how would you even do that?
There's movies I know I've left off. Like I went through my letterbox, and there's movies I want to talk about that I've left off.
This taught me to have a letterbox, because like if we're going to do this in the future, like I need to have a letterbox.
It really helps. It helped me, because the last one I'm going to talk about is a deep cut that I wouldn't have remembered if I didn't go through
deep cuts. Unfortunately, Licorice Pizza was kind of my deep cut, but it was nominated for best film.
No, I actually hadn't thought about Licorice Pizza in a while though when you brought it up, and it made me think about it again. So that's good. So what's your last one? Give me one more.
Well, you know that my boy, my sweet boy, my favorite director, made another movie within the last 2 years, and it was French Dispatch. I got
you put them in one before. I thought you were doing.
Oh god damn it. Okay.
Yeah.
I will take.
Yeah, when you've already put them in, if you hadn't put them in one, I'd allow it. But you already put them in one, so you gotta pick another one.
You know what? You're smart.
Pints and popcorn, baby. Emphasis on the pints.
I'm gonna take All Is Quiet.
Oh, okay. Because I still haven't watched it yet, because I'm waiting to get a 4K copy of it, because I've heard, because I'm a little snobby bitch.
I hate that it's a remake. I hate that it's a remake. I hate that it was I hate that the 70s remake was definitely. I haven't seen the 70s remake, but I know that it was not up to, because this is from the strict German point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing war film. Not even my favorite of this year, but I'm just saying, like off the top of my head, once you busted my balls about.
I mean, that's the point.
Yeah, it was really good. It was a really good film. I hate the ending. And hey, spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
I think All Quiet on the Western Front, even the new one, I think just the fact it's been a classic book for so long, statute of limitations is out. So you're fine.
I hate how they handled the ending. I'll say that.
Okay. That doesn't spoil it, so that's fine.
No,
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know exactly what I don't know exactly what you're talking about. So that's fine.
I hate like the last 20 minutes of that film, or like fucking cut them off. And
okay, without having seen it, I'm sure that's going to be one of those kind. I keep hitting my mind. You're
going to like that film.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Like I said, what I need is like, and I haven't had it yet in the last couple of months, is just I need an afternoon where I can sit down and watch it properly, and I just haven't had it properly. Because Andrea hasn't had too much interest in watching it, so it's one of those ones I know I'm gonna have to watch on my own. And it just hasn't happened yet. But I am excited to watch it. I'm really excited to watch it because I love the book, and yeah, it's the story that is All Quiet on the Western Front is one of the most pure, heartbreaking, visceral war stories that exists to this day. So yeah. Well, my last movie.
German perspective. From the German perspective, it's insane.
Well, that's what the All
So
Quiet
I
on the
just
Western Front is German perspective.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why like people should watch it. Like and like
Mm.
nobody
And
should watch it.
it got respected at the Oscars this year, which I love to see. Like it was nominated for the main film, but it won the obviously foreign film and I think it won, I can't remember, if it won screenplay, like adapted, and set like score and music. It won 3 or 4 at least, including best foreign film. So yeah, it got its dues at the Oscars, which was really cool to see for a film that had. I mean, it had a unique score for a war film as well, just from what I know from seeing, listening to some film music as well. So that was cool. All right, my last one, which was a discovery of a 1980, I believe, Australian film that I had not seen. I'd heard of all my life, hadn't seen. I know Shea hasn't seen this movie because it is a film based on Australian football. It is called simply The Club, and it's not. It is a, I would
Not a
call
real
it.
club.
It is a fantastic film about a troublesome year in the history of, and it is based on a fictional club, but you can tell it's basically the Collingwood Football Club in Australia, a club that essentially is the Dallas Cowboys of the Australian football.
Dude.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to hear from you by saying that. But it is a film that just goes through it kind of is centered around this club, um, starting to deal with the professionalization of the sport, which started happening in the 1980s. So it was very ahead of its time. It was actually based on a stage play, I believe, as well. And they sign a very highly touted forward from the state of Tasmania, which has a very, and then he comes in and he's paid a lot of money. He doesn't start off well with his career there, and because he was an amateur footballer down in Tasmania essentially, and signed for big money to come up, and just basically goes through the story of a season. There's the president of the club and the coach of the club have differences, and it is very good sports story told from an Australian lens, and being made in 1980. It's very Australian. It's very heavy on the accents. It's very heavy on the fact that the club is essentially just, a boardroom above a pub, but it deals
On
with
your
it.
closed captioning
Yeah,
is what you're
you
saying.
might. Yeah, Andrea often needs captions for Australian or English movies, and it might be one of those ones you need it for.
I wish I had it for you at the pub.
But if you're fair, if you're a sports fan and you want to watch a sports movie from, it is an interesting, being that it's now 43 years old now, and was before, it was right at the time Australian football started to really professionalize. It just feels very ahead of its time in a way, and very very comedic, darkly comedic, because there's a, to not get too deep into it, because I feel like it's one I want to make you watch and do at some point. There's a part, because Tasmania in Australia is the state that people make jokes about inbreeding, right?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a part of the movie where leaks start happening from the club, right? Like some news about people starts getting out of the club, and people are like, who's leaking this news? And so this guy that's from Tasmania, and he smokes weed, and he's a little bit of a different cat, and the club don't like him exactly, even though he's highly talented. He has one of the board members from the club, I think, comes over. I've only seen it once still, so I'm going off the cuff of my memory. But this guy from Tasmania starts telling a story about his family history. It's like, my sister lost all her arms and legs, and she needed comfort, and then I started making love to her. And then my mum and he tells this story of this incestuous, disgusting story that you
Spoiler
think
alert.
yeah, it's spoiler alert, whatever. That you think at the time,
Yeah.
and then
Never
like
watched this, by the way.
and it comes with graphics and everything. And the leader of the club, is just shocked by it. And then the story comes out, and then it comes out that this guy was just telling a complete lie about his family history, and utilizing the inherent biases that the mainlanders have about him and people from there, and it's very ahead of its time. It's very ahead of its time, and I think I think it's just so fucking funny, but so Australian in its own way, and for me, one of those movies that stuck in my mind for like discovering that, like, I'd heard of it all my life, but was just like, it's a movie about footy, like, I'm already heartbroken by my own team. I don't know if I want to watch this, but then I finally watched it, and I loved it. So
if you're still listening at this point, and if you are, dear God, please find help. And you want to watch that? I would recommend Wolf Creek before that.
You dickhead.
That sounds like a better choice. And if you don't understand the joke, go back and listen to every single podcast we've ever done, because I bring it up because it's stupid.
Wolf Creek is a horror classic. It's just misunderstood by certain people on the outside of the Venn diagram.
I don't get horror film, and that's a fact.
Oh, Shay,
David.
we finally made it to the end of our comeback podcast episode. What do you think?
The bottom of the bottle.
I've still got a couple more back there that I'm going to drink off air.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
It's bad, but we should log off.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you've been listening this far, we appreciate you.
Again, what is wrong with you? Like,
what is wrong with you, or what is right with you? We don't judge.
Yeah, I mean,
but we appreciate you listening. It's fun for us to talk film and everything that comes with it. So we're looking forward to getting back to some of our film centric episodes starting next week, as we talked about earlier with the nice guys that will come next week. And then we've got some fun ideas for like an intermittent special episodes as far as like going back, and I think the re-Oscars is something we've talked about, and talking about past Oscar years and redoing categories as to what probably historically fits better as a best picture, for example, rather than what happened that year. Shay's happy. Shay's happy. I like it when I make my boy happy. That's what I live for. But anyway, the core of this.
Power of the Dog is a movie I wanted to mention.
What's that?
Power of the Dog is a movie.
Ooh, another one I haven't seen. There's so many movies I still haven't seen from the past couple of years. So it just shows that this podcast will exist into perpetuity because there's too much. But yes, the core will always be we're gonna start diving into individual movies, and that's what we love. But we have some ideas for some special episodes here and there that we're looking forward to as well. Anyway, fucking glad to be back.
Love it.
So I can't remember. Pour some pints, pop some popcorn. Let's watch some fucking movies.
Over the line!